Chapter 887. Chief Chen, you don't actually have to do this yourself, do you? Just let us do it for you. Halfway through the journey, Wu Qingming, who was sitting in the back, tried to find a topic to talk about. Chen Guang shook his head. I have nothing to do at the bureau anyway, and I can't help much. This matter is particularly important, and I don't feel at ease leaving it to others. He didn't say it clearly, but he had a feeling that if the group of old men in Yanjing really had any ideas, they would probably stop him from getting any information related to Wenwen. He wasn't a suspicious person, but he had seen many historical allusions about how the cunning rabbit was cooked after it was killed. He wasn't related to the old men in Yanjing. Even if it was because of Jin Shiyue, Jiang Yage, or Lin Jingwei, which made them seem to value him, they treated him too well. They didn't hold back and forcefully pushed a young man like him, who had no qualifications or background and was not suitable to be an official, to such an important position. I'm even a student who hasn't graduated from university yet. They didn't know that he had the heavenly holy grail, and they didn't know that he had a talent that even Wenwen could only look up to. For him to be able to sit in this position, at least 70% of his relationship with Wenwen was at least. There's no such thing as a free lunch in the world, and there's no such thing as love for no reason. Chen Guang didn't believe that the old men in Beijing would entrust him with an important task just because they found him pleasing to the eye, treating him like how they treated Lin Jingwei and Bai Hua. He wasn't related to them, and he had only met them a few times. Moreover, don't be fooled by how kind they looked in front of him, and how they looked like kind elders. But don't forget that politicians were the most complicated people in the world. The old men in Yanjing, on the other hand, had slowly climbed to the highest position of power over the past few decades. They were the politicians of the politicians, and none of them were easy to deal with. One shouldn't have the intention to harm others, but one must always be on guard against others. The destruction of the Special Affairs Bureau was not long ago. The General Directorate of Light was the replacement for the Special Affairs Bureau. Although he was now in charge, they seemed to have unreserved trust in him. But perhaps it was more because they didn't have a more suitable choice at the moment. Letting him sit here was the best compromise under the current circumstances. If they were given the opportunity, they wouldn't mind taking advantage of the situation. In the future, they would think of a way to control the entire Guangbing General Headquarters, and then control all the inner force martial artists in the country. With his original personality, he was not willing to speculate about these things. However, he was no longer the same as before. Although his personality hadn't changed much, he had lived in the Holy Grail, especially in the Sea of Moments for so many years. He had tried his best not to let his mental state be affected by living for too long, but in the end, he had still become an old fox, an old monster. It wasn't his fault that he became a human spirit. It was purely a matter of time. There were many things that he didn't want to think about. He wanted to live a more relaxed life. However, if it was really necessary, he just needed to put in a little more effort, and he would be able to see through things and survive. This kind of life was too boring. In fact, if it wasn't for the fact that the matter with Wenwen hadn't been settled, if it wasn't for the fact that he hadn't gotten his revenge, if it wasn't for the fact that more than 20 families had all been killed because of his sudden decision, Chen Guang didn't like being a bureau chief at all. He had already made up his mind. After settling these matters, he wouldn't be a bureau chief anymore. He would happily be his own internet celebrity, and live a carefree life in the future. Being an internet celebrity, setting up a company, earning faith points, earning big money, and doing missions in the Holy Grail in a down-to-earth manner. He would be the master of the Holy Grail, the master of the 3,000 worlds. It would be much more comfortable than being the bureau chief of the General Directorate of Light. That kind of life was the life of a deity. He had money, no responsibilities, and no danger. In the future, the entire Earth, the entire universe, and the 3,000 worlds in the Holy Grail would all be under his control. His journey was the Sea of Stars. What was a mere bureau chief position in the General Directorate of Light? Just thinking about it made him look forward to it. As for the so-called authority, he had given up the position. No matter who the successor was, they would have to give him some face. More importantly, no matter how strong Wen looked today, he had the Holy Grail and Liuli's help. Based on the nature of the Holy Grail, it would either not make a move or make a move. When Liuli's grand plan was completed, there was no reason for him to be inferior to Wen. At that time, he would be the real number one in the world, the strongest in history. The position he was sitting in would not affect his position at all. Apart from that, he wouldn't fall out with them. Based on his relationship with Lin Jingwei, as well as his relationship with Jin Shiyue and Jiang Yage, he could be considered as one of them. Then he would be able to live longer than the crown prince. If there were no accidents, at the thought of this, Chen Guang recalled his faintly discernible sixth sense in the morgue yesterday. It was also known as a man's intuition, and he felt goosebumps. Was there anything more terrifying than the inexplicable appearance of magical elements in this world? When the car arrived at Long Dingtian's villa, it was already past 10 in the morning. Who are you looking for? The villa district security guard stopped Chen Guang's car at the entrance with a scrutinizing expression. Chen Guang rolled down the car window. Chief Long of Villa 77. Villa 77? The security guard, who was dressed in a well-ironed uniform, sized up Chen Guang from head to toe. He was obviously a little suspicious. In this villa district, the owners of these few villas had relatively special statuses. They were more powerful and influential than the other owners. For example, Villa 18, 66, 68, and 77. Bro, to be honest, there's nothing to see in this district. Why don't you leave? Chen Guang was stunned. He never thought that he would be asked to leave at the entrance of the district. Young man, I've seen 70 to 80 people like you, and now the grass on their graves is almost 3 feet high. All right, I'll call someone to pick you up. Another security guard came over. Friend, that's enough. We meet a few people every month who want to drive in to see strange things. You're not the first one. Everyone is curious about the life of the rich, and we understand that. We really won't look down on you. If you really want to find someone, we have a ready-made audiovisual system here. You really don't need to make a call. The security guard who stopped the car earlier looked up and down at Chen Guang's car with contempt. But I really don't think it's necessary. Just based on your Passat, I can tell that you're not a friend of the residents in this district. If you're talking about other owners, it's fine, but Villa 77 is really not something that ordinary people can imagine. Just the day before yesterday, they came with 8 cars at once. All of them were Rolls-Royces and Bentleys, and your Passat, TSK. Chen Guang was furious. Are you blind? This is a top-end phaeton. It's worth almost 2 million. You don't recognize it? He was speechless. This kind of joke actually happened to him. Did I not check the almanac when I went out today? It's embarrassing to say it out loud. Another security guard walked to the back of his car. Who are you kidding? You wrote it here yourself. Hey. AC. Passat. Are you bullying me because I don't know the English alphabet? Chen Guang immediately reacted. Damn, he had forced the 4S shop to change the logo on purpose. Now he was embarrassed. Go. I can't be bothered to argue with you. I'll call someone to come out. Chen Guang's body stiffened in embarrassment. The hood emblem was irrefutable evidence, and it would be embarrassing if he spoke any more nonsense. TSK, what kind of trick is this? You really look like a pig with a green onion in your nose. In less than 5 minutes, Long Dingtian, who was in a suit, ran out personally. When he received a call from Chen Guang and heard that he was stopped at the door, Long Dingtian couldn't sit still. He could have asked his subordinates to contact the security to let him pass. Otherwise, he could have just sent someone to pick him up. But in order to show that he valued Chen Guang, he decided to run over personally. He deliberately used his internal energy to make his face look flushed and panting. He rushed up and slapped the 2 security guards. With 2 slaps, two bright red blood marks appeared on their faces. Their teeth flew out of their mouths, and blood flowed from the corners of their mouths. Are you blind? Get lost. Long Ding Tian didn't expose Chen Guang's identity. After slapping the two security guards, he personally led Chen Guang inside. He bowed and said, Mr. Chen, please give me the car key. I'll ask someone to drive the car in. Greetings, Abbess Xan Yuan. Greetings, sect leader Wu. Chen Guang frowned tightly. Compared with the heroic and imposing Long Ding Tian in the past, today's Long Ding Tian had become a bit too flattering. Although he was now the director, they were all acquaintances because of their previous relationship. He was also the leader of a sect. It was not worthwhile for him to be so servile. In addition, when he slapped the two security guards just now, he was too ruthless. Their eyesight was a bit poor, but they shouldn't have been beaten like this, right? If he wasn't mistaken, when Long Ding Tian slapped, there was even internal energy flowing in his palm. If it was another time, Chen Guang might have argued with Long Ding Tian about this matter. But today's situation was very urgent, and time was tight. He threw the car key to Long Ding Tian's entourage and walked inside with him. Abbess Xan Yuan and Wu Qingming were already familiar with Long Ding Tian. A simple nod to greet him was considered a greeting. The people of Jianghu had their own rules. Although the Thousand Despair sect and the Thousand Flower Valley were not big sects, their status in Jianghu was much higher than Dragon Gate Express. Naturally, the status of the two leaders was also higher. Long Ding Tian was a junior in front of the two of them. Nodding to greet them was enough to give them face. The group walked inside. In the end, Chen Guang couldn't help but say, Boss Long, you hit them a bit too hard just now. Long Ding Tian explained, Boss Chen, you don't know this. These security guards of the property have long been notorious. They say whatever they want to say and whatever they want to say. They don't know what to do. I'm not the only one who doesn't like them. Many owners in this community have a lot of complaints. Today's matter is not a big deal. I'm just giving them a little punishment to teach them a lesson. Just as Chen Guang was about to say something, Abbess Xan Yuan also said in a cold voice, Boss Chen, there's nothing wrong with Long Ding Tian's actions. Those two people were too arrogant just now. If I were to take action, I'm afraid they would be more seriously injured. Okay. Since Abbess Xan Yuan had spoken, Chen Guang really couldn't continue to dwell on this issue. He temporarily put this matter in the bottom of his heart. The few of them went straight to Villa 77 and walked inside. Since the last time the house was blown up, Long Ding Tian rebuilt the headquarters of Dragon Gate Express 5 Capital Branch in this villa. This villa occupied a large area. It was a 4-story building with an average area of about 300 square meters on each floor. It was a bit like an office building. The hall on the first floor had been converted into an office. Dozens of computers were placed neatly. There were people coming and going. More than a dozen technical staff of Dragon Gate Express and the data staff that Chen Guang had transferred from the Guangding General Office were whispering to each other. They looked very busy. The staff of the General Office turned around and saw Chen Guang and greeted him. Hello, boss. Boss Chen. Chen Guang talked to people while looking at the computer screen in the crowd. However, the dense collection and delivery points, as well as the delivery routes and other maps, made him dizzy. These raw data really had no reference value. Boss Chen, please go to the conference room on the 4th floor and sit for a while. I'll ask someone to send the report up immediately, and then we can discuss it together. Long Ding Tian bowed and asked. Chen Guang waved his hand. Okay, Boss Long, you don't have to be so polite. I'm too uncomfortable. Okay. I'll try my best. Chen Guangxian and the two elders of the sect went upstairs together. Long Ding Tian's face was full of smiles as he looked at the backs of Chen Guang and the other two. When they turned a corner and disappeared into the stairwell, his smile became even wider. Sitting in the office, Chen Guang still felt that something was wrong. He said to Abbess Xian Huan, "That's strange. When I dealt with Boss Long in the past, he wasn't like this." Wu Qingming covered her mouth and laughed. "That's because Boss Chen is no longer the same as before." Chen Guang muttered, "But I don't feel that I'm different." "Forget it. I just feel uncomfortable. It's no big deal." He felt that he had overlooked something very important, but he couldn't think of what it was at the moment. After waiting for a few more minutes, a beautiful female secretary came into the office with a tea tray. She said, "Please have some tea. Boss Long will be here soon." When Chen Guang's group of 3 received the tea, Chen Guang rubbed the crystal cup with his finger and looked at the tea leaves floating in the cup. He fell into deep thoughts. On the other side, Abbess Xian Huan and Wu Qingming picked up the teacup and took 2 sips. This tea is fragrant and warm without losing its sweetness. It's really a good tea. Abbess Xian Huan sighed. Wu Qingming also nodded. Long Dingtian really knows how to enjoy himself. Chen Guang suddenly looked at the door. Then, he lowered his head and asked in a low voice, "Seniors, aren't you worried that there will be goods in the tea?" Unexpectedly, Abbess Xian Huan and Wu Qingming looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. Abbess Xian Huan didn't smile and was too lazy to explain. Wu Qingming took the initiative to say, "Don't you know, Boss Chen? Longdingtian's Dragon Gate Express has been helping to sell the aphrodisiac pills and other elixirs that our Myriad Flower Valley and Thousand Despair sect made together. The 2 of us have known Long Dingtian for a long time. Although he isn't very talented in martial arts, he is still a decent person and knows the big picture. There shouldn't be any problems." Abbess Xian Huan coughed lightly and said, "Boss Chen, you might have been a little too worried these 2 days." She didn't say it clearly. In fact, she was saying that Chen Guang was too nervous. Wu Qingming said again, "That's right. Besides, who am I? I'm the leader of Myriad Flower Valley. Although I can't say that I'm the best in the world when it comes to medicine, I'm still one of the top experts in the underworld. I don't even need to drink the tea to know if there's anything wrong with it. Try it, Boss Chen. It's rare and good tea. It'll be a pity if it turns cold." Seeing that the 2 of them were so confident, Chen Guang felt a little more at ease. However, he didn't drink Long Dingtian's tea. Instead, he took out his heavenly holy grail from his bag. "I'm a neat freak. I always bring my cup with me wherever I go. I only drink my own water." Chapter 888. Wu Qingming still wanted to say something, but Abbess Xian Yuan said, "Don't try to persuade Director Chen. As the leader of the headquarters, it's not wrong for him to be more careful. For example, in the future, he shouldn't secretly travel alone like before. That way, we won't have to worry for nothing." "All right." Wu Qingming shrugged and didn't say anything else. After waiting for a few more minutes, Long Dingtian finally brought 2 people upstairs. One of them was a technician from Dragon Gate Express, and the other was a technician that Chen Guang had transferred from the headquarters to assist. "I'm sorry to have kept everyone waiting. Actually, we've already roughly analyzed some results. It's just that we can't make a decision for now. I think Director Chen knows Sect Master Wen Jiawen's style of doing things better, and he's dealt with many people from the Poison Sect and the Dark Sect before. Maybe he can solve some of the mysteries that we couldn't solve before." Chen Guang nodded. "Director Long, let's get straight to the point. Let's hurry." Long Dingtian nodded and pressed the switch. The projector in the conference room immediately lit up, and an enlarged version of the map of China appeared on the big screen in front. "Give Chief Chen a demonstration." Long Dingtian instructed the technician beside him. The technician, who looked exceptionally young, took a step forward and pressed the remote control in his hand. The dot of light moved to the big screen, and he dragged the map to zoom and zoom quickly. In the next instant, the simplified version of the map that Chen Guang had seen in the headquarters office appeared in front of him. The densely packed silk lines that represented the express delivery route and the receiving and shipping points quickly appeared. It was much more detailed than what Chen Guang had seen previously. Long Dingtian's conference room was well done. It was filled with a modern sense of technology. Although Chen Guang was dizzy from looking at it, he didn't show it on his face. He looked like he was fully focused and said, "I can't see anything from this, can I?" Long Dingtian first looked at Chen Guang, smiled, and said, "Of course, this is only the result of our preliminary analysis. Chief Chen, look at these locations." Over the past few months, the frequency at which Dragon Gate Express receives and delivers goods in the nearby areas has been much higher than before. A few days ago, I already had my suspicions, so I ordered the couriers and the people in charge of the places to check the goods carefully when they receive and deliver the goods. Even though we can't open the boxes to check the goods due to the rules of the trade, we can use modern technology to scan the goods. We'll be able to get a general idea of what's inside. Chen Guang nodded. That's true. That's how the express delivery industry is. There's actually no secret. Long Dingtian explained, "Of course, we don't usually check our customers' goods. After all, this is the foundation of our Dragon Gate Express. When doing business, reputation is very important. But desperate times call for desperate measures. I'm duty-bound to contribute to the headquarters. It's not a big deal to take some risks." Chen Guang's acting skills burst out as he praised with a smile, "If everyone had the same ability and way of thinking as Boss Long, then I would be much more relaxed. Senior Xian, Senior Wu, your sects must learn from Boss Long and keep up with the times. Even though martial arts is the foundation of everyone, technology is so advanced now. If you don't keep up with the times, you might be eliminated." Wu Qingming covered her mouth and laughed. "You're right, Chief Chen. I'll teach those disciples in my sect who only know how to cultivate." Chen Guang's acting skills were too good. Wu Qingming thought that he had already let go of the previous grudge. Long Dingtian also became proud. "Thank you for your compliment, Chief Chen. Dragon Gate Express will definitely continue to work hard and reach new heights." "All right, continue. I'm listening." Long Dingtian cleared his throat and continued his analysis. "After about 1.5 months of investigation, we discovered that even though these items seem to be inconspicuous herbs and common rare materials, they're just a few small sects in Ninghai Province. But the original few small families in Ninghai Province really did not need such a large number of medicinal herbs and forging materials. Only one of the 8 major sects would have such a large amount of consumption. Therefore, we concluded that the Poison Sect and Dark Sect, which have been hiding due to the headquarters' aggressiveness in the past few months, are probably in Ninghai Province." Chen Guang gave him a thumbs up. "That makes sense." However, he thought to himself, how could the Poison Sect and Dark Sect, which have always been cautious, be exposed so easily? He really didn't want to face this reality, but he felt that Long Dingtian was becoming more and more suspicious. The smile on Long Dingtian's face deepened. "Therefore, I ordered my subordinates to strengthen the investigation and search. Every time the goods are received and sent out, I would always chat with the other party. This further confirmed my previous judgment. Since last month, I've checked all the ordered data in the vicinity of Ninghai Province again and again. Finally, I came up with these 5 suspected locations on the map. Even though Sect Leader Wen has gone missing, I secretly believe that Sect Leader Wen's target is the Poison Sect and Dark Sect. Even though the Wen family hasn't been able to accurately find the headquarters of the 2 evil sects, it's impossible for them to return empty-handed after such a long investigation. Therefore, it's very likely that Sect Leader Wen has also gone to Ninghai Province. However, it's a pity that the data is limited. The other party isn't easy to deal with. They definitely understand the concept of what's real and what's fake. The 5 suspected locations that I've analyzed on the surface may not be accurate. Ninghai Province is too big. I originally thought that since this isn't my job, I shouldn't waste my time and energy on it. However, I heard that you were anxious about this matter yesterday. After thinking about it, I finally decided to report it overnight. Please forgive me for my previous selfishness, Chief Chen. Chen Guang smiled and waved his hand. It's all right. Boss Long, you've already done a good job. From yesterday to today, I asked you to access the military Skynet data. What have you gained? Long Dingtian waved his hand again and looked at the technician from the Guangding headquarters. Thanks to the assistance of the military's data, I've finally gained something. I found the 6th location in addition to these 5 suspected locations. The technician from Dragon Gate Express pressed a button, and the image on the map rotated. The originally scattered and irregular points and straight lines slowly changed, and a second type of blue dotted line slowly appeared on the map. This is the data that we calculated last night. This blue dotted line represents the possible movement route of the consignee or consignor before or after they came into contact with our courier. Combining all the dotted lines together, I have reason to believe that the people from the Poison Sect and the Dark Sect are hiding in this extremely desolate mountain area in Ninghai Province. It's this area that's marked in blue. Long Dingtian was finally talking about the main event, and he spoke in an excited tone. Chen Guang narrowed his eyes slightly and stared at the screen, trying to analyze something with his brain. Frankly speaking, he didn't really understand the basis of such big data calculations. How did you come up with this result? Chen Guang asked, then turned to look at the technician from the headquarters. The technician had not slept the entire night and had stayed up until now. He looked a little tired, but when he was called out by the director, his face immediately flushed with excitement and pride. Director Chen, this data is the result of our analysis after comparing Dragon Gate Express's previous data with Skynet surveillance over the past few months. From yesterday to tonight, after our headquarters and the military worked overtime, and with the image description provided by Director Long, we've confirmed the movement routes of more than 200 people over the past few days in the surveillance images. Long Dingtian, who was at the side, said, thanks to the cooperation of the military, we were able to get this result. Also, we captured this image in Ningxia Province 5 days ago. Director Chen, please take a look. The technician switched the image, and a slightly blurry Skynet photo appeared on the screen. The image was taken from midair, and the Skynet surveillance should have been installed on the electric poles. There was a street corner in the image, and at the bottom of the corner was the back of a woman in white. We're guessing that this might be Sect Leader 1, but because the photo is too blurry, we can't be sure. Director Chen, you know Sect Leader 1 better. Do you think this looks like her? Abruptly, Chen Guang stood up from his chair. Although the photo was blurry, and he could only see the back of the woman, with Chen Guang's understanding of Wenwen, he was 100% sure that this was Wenwen. Their figures were 90% similar, but Chen Guang also knew that Wenwen had a habit of putting her left thumb in her pocket when she walked. The woman's left forearm was slightly bent in the photo, and it was obvious that her thumb was also stuck in her pocket. He couldn't hide his joy. Poison Sect and Dark Sect were in Ninghai, and Wenwen had appeared in Ningxia Province, which was right next to Ninghai. Although he was still suspicious and felt that Long Dingtian's behavior was abnormal, his entire data analysis process was indeed rigorous and meticulous. However, his entire data analysis process was indeed rigorous and meticulous. There were also technicians from the General Directorate of Light involved, so it was unlikely that he could have faked it. Now, he even had concrete evidence. Chen Guang thought to himself. Could it be that this was true information? Was he one of them? At this moment, his phone suddenly vibrated slightly. Chen Guang used his hand to block the view of others and picked up his phone to look at the message. This was sent by Jiang Yage, whom he hadn't seen for a long time, using a secret communication software. There was only one line of words on it. Your classmate Wenwen might be in Ninghai. Someone is hiding it from you. He kept his phone quietly and fell into deep thought. Chen Guang suddenly realized why he couldn't find any trace of Wenwen even after she replied to his WeChat message. Although her phone was definitely specially made and difficult to crack, there was no reason that the Chinese military couldn't do it with their current technological capabilities. The only explanation for this situation was that someone was secretly obstructing them. It was just as he had guessed, the old men were up to no good. Although he didn't know how Jiang Yage got the information, it was very likely that he got it secretly from Jiang Yuanchao. Jiang Yage wouldn't harm him in this kind of matter. Then, this meant that what Long Dingtian said was true. His information was undeniable. I've wronged him. Perhaps Senior Wu was right, I'm a little too sensitive. After thinking about it, he and the Dark Clan's Golden Flower Granny were mortal enemies, and there was no reason for him to betray them. At this moment, he finally remembered that he had missed something and praised Long Dingtian. Good. Very good. Boss Long is indeed amazing. This junior is here to thank you. Chen Guang waved his hand and turned to Wu Qingming. I'll have to trouble Senior Wu to help me contact the bureau and immediately dispatch people. We will depart within 3 hours. I will personally communicate with the military and request for assistance. This time, we must uproot them. Wu Qingming stood up and replied in a clear voice, okay. After the plan was settled, Chen Guang pretended to leave and mentioned the previous matter unintentionally. Speaking of which, Boss Long, the security guard of your villa area is really arrogant. When I was about to drive in, he told me that a few luxury cars like Bentley or Rolls-Royce came to your villa area a few days ago, and there were quite a few of them. Long Dingtian laughed. I've let Chief Chen see a joke. I'm the one who instructed the people in charge of Dragon Gate Express to come here for a meeting. Now that the Dark Clan is no longer a threat, the express delivery business in the pugilistic world will be under me. As long as Chief Chen returns in triumph, there will be real good days in the future. It's because of Chief Chen's wise leadership that we have the chance to make a name for ourselves. Chen Guang rolled his eyes. All the people in charge of your district drive Bentley. You're too kind. If Chief Chen likes it, I can give you another one. Just treat it as a follow-up to the endorsement contract. Chen Guang grinned. How can I do that? By the way, Boss Long, you're going with us for this operation, right? Your people are more familiar with the situation there. With you around, it'll be easier to arrange a local guide. Long Dingtian hesitated for a moment and immediately said with a bitter face, all right, all right. Since Chief Chen has ordered me, I won't dare to disobey. After that, he waved his hand and said to his subordinates in a heroic manner, bring me my big ring sword. Today, I'll follow Chief Chen to kill them all. Abbess Xian Yuan, who was standing at the side, said faintly, what can you do with your mediocre skills? Your task is to follow Chief Chen all the way. If there's any accident, help him take the sword. On the other side, Wu Qingming had already called the headquarters. She moved closer to Chen Guang and raised her eyebrows. Chief Chen, did I say anything wrong? Long Dingtian will be fine. Chen Guang blushed slightly and nodded silently. Now that he thought about it, Chen Guang felt that he was the one overthinking it. The luxury car incident was a groundless worry, and he was the one being paranoid. There was nothing wrong with the tea of Wu Qingming and Abbess Xian Yuan. The information was also true. Long Dingtian would go with him. At that time, there would be a few more masters around him. If he really betrayed them, he would be the first to die. He really had no reason to seek his own death. The time was just right. 3 hours later, hundreds of neatly dressed Jianghu masters with swords and knives appeared at the Yanjing military airport. Although it was a temporary operation, there were already signs before. Most of the martial artists who were mobilized were the heads of the major sects who had already surrendered to the Guangding General Office. Otherwise, they were the elders or cabinet elders who were above the heads. It could be said that they had a strong army and extraordinary strength. Chen Guang stood in front of the crowd, feeling excited. Since the establishment of the Guangding General Office, it was the first time that almost all of them were mobilized. It might also be the last time that all of them were mobilized. Chen Guang wasn't a fool to not use his authority. No matter how arrogant the poison sect and dark sect were, he would still bring along all the experts he could find. In fact, he even pretended that he didn't know that the old man was trying to hide it from him and forcefully asked for the military's help. Although they were reluctant, it was not the time to fall out with me. In the end, they agreed. There were also close to 1,000 special forces armed with new types of individual weapons accompanying them. I will use the power of Mount Tai to suppress you. I will use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. I will use all my strength to catch a rabbit. I don't believe that you can overturn the sky. Speaking of which, it was quite good to have power. The feeling of being able to command the Jianghu and control the court was actually quite enjoyable. On the way to the airport, for insurance, he even secretly called Jiang Yage to confirm that it was really her message. Although she refused to say where she got the information, he was very sure that the information was correct. Jiang Yage said in the end, "You must be careful. I really don't want to tell you this, but I don't want to keep it in my heart for the rest of my life." Sigh. Chen Guang said with a heroic smile, "Don't worry. I can guarantee that in the past hundreds of years, no one has been able to do what I did today. I brought almost 70% of the masters of the Jianghu with me, and the goal was to take care of 2 small sections. I was like the 6 major sects besieging Guangding. They would have died with just a mouthful of saliva from each of them." He had no choice but to be confident. Since the last individual military exercise, the Special Affairs Bureau was quickly destroyed, and the Huaxia government's strength was unreservedly displayed in front of all the Jianghu people. After all, there were only a few stubborn people. A wise man submits to the circumstances. Chen Guang thought to himself. Now, he only hoped that he could lead the team to Ningxia before Wenwen. When she arrived, if she found out that he had settled everything, she would definitely be so touched that she would marry him, right? No, she had already done it twice. Then, he could earn another overnight fee, right? Let's go. Chapter 889. When Chen Guang and the others got off the plane at the military airport of Ninghai Province, it was already evening and the sun had set. The 2 deputy directors of the Guangding General Administration came with them this time. Xin Qin and Wu Miaowan knew that Chen Guang was not good at coordinating and arranging things. With so many seniors and masters present, the 2 little girls were here to coordinate with Chen Guang, so they did not have to fight. This was also the idea of Abbess Xin Yuan and Wu Qingming. They wanted to take this opportunity to let the 2 disciples from the Thousand Despair sect and the Thousand Flower Valley follow Chen Guang and give orders to the others as deputy bureau chief. This would also solidify the status of the 2 little Lolas in the future. It was also because of Xin Yuan and Wu Qingming's foresight and determination that the 2 declining sects, Qinju's sect and Wanhua Valley, had the upper hand in the new situation. The heads of other sects were all envious and jealous. In the conference room of the base, after landing, Chen Guang first gathered some middle-level members of the general administration and some masters who had reached the peak of Pai Jin. There were about 30 people in total. "Director, why don't we rest here for a day and leave tomorrow morning?" After a brief discussion about the current situation, Xin Qin stood up and expressed her opinion. Chen Guang shook his head. "No, we will leave immediately. Although we have done a good job in keeping such a large-scale operation confidential, there is still a risk of leakage. Since we are here, of course, we have to catch them off guard with a thunderous force. But most of the advanced equipment has not arrived yet. They are still behind with the second batch of soldiers." Xin Qin was a little worried. Chen Guang first smiled, then looked at the other Jianghu masters and said, "Although those individual weapons are very powerful, we have a lot of masters here. Without the other 700 people and those weapons, we don't even dare to go out." Xin Qin still wanted to say something, but Abbess Xin Yuan next to her coughed lightly. She immediately understood what her master meant and sat back unhappily. Long Ding Tian looked around and said, "Director Chen, don't worry. It is not so easy to transfer people on such a large scale. There are at least thousands of people in Poison Sect and Dark Sect. Now that we are here, the more anxious they are, the easier it is for them to give themselves away. Deputy Director Xian's worries are not wrong. It's better to be safe than sorry. Chen Guang waves his hand. Boss Long, you don't have to say any more, we'll set off immediately. We are going to eat supper by Ninghai Lake tonight. 20 minutes later, the mighty motorcade drove straight to Ninghai Lake. The map showed that the most likely hiding place of the two evil sects was in the deep forest about 10 kilometers west of Ninghai Lake. Chen Guang firmly believed that if there was no mole, they would still be in the dark. Even if there was a mole, with the efficiency of his swift and decisive actions, they wouldn't have the time and space to move. There are advantages and disadvantages for those people to hide in the remote mountains. The advantage was that it wouldn't be easy to get caught, but the disadvantage was that once his whereabouts were exposed, he would immediately be targeted by missiles. Modern military technology allowed humans to possess increasingly powerful weapons of war. An inner force martial artist's individual combat ability far exceeded that of an ordinary soldier. Once they were allowed to infiltrate a city, the damage they could cause was extremely terrifying. One of them could even match up to a special force. However, once they were in the wilderness, there were no civilians around them, and the Huaxia military had nothing to fear. If they were unhappy, they would be served with missiles and bombed by the Air Force. This was also why all the major sects in the past treated the location of their headquarters as their top secret. Reporting the location of their headquarters, with the current level of technology, was like placing the softest abdomen of a hedgehog outside. They were the meat on the chopping block. Either they didn't surrender, or once they did, it was equivalent to giving up on themselves. In the past, the Special Affairs Bureau would never do such things, nor did they have the guts to do so. However, the current Guangdong General Administration was much more powerful than the Special Affairs Bureau of the past. The old men in Yanjin were also much more determined, and the level of military technology was no longer what it used to be. Once hit by modern military power such as missiles or bombing, even the most powerful iron shirt and golden bell shield would not survive for more than a few seconds. At this moment, although there were some grudges between Chen Guang and the old men in Yanjin, under the insistence of Jiang Yuanshao and Shuizhan, Chen Guang still received unconditional support, and he had the assistance of long-range firepower. Today, Chen Guang seemed to be headstrong and did not listen to anyone's opinion. On one hand, he was really worried about Wenwen's safety, and he was afraid that she would get ahead of him. On the other hand, he really did not think that with their current strength, they would be afraid of the two evil sections. Ninghai Province was not comparable to Duchuan Province. Its economic level was not developed, and the level of road construction was far inferior to Duchuan Province. They bumped along the winding mountain road all the way. When they arrived at Ninghai Lake, the largest saltwater lake in Huaxia, it was already about 6 hours later. The second batch of more than 700 follow-up troops and individual weapons were still behind them. They were followed closely by more than 50 large trucks. They were about 5 hours later than the first batch. Chief Chen, there is no road ahead, and we can only proceed on foot. Why don't we set up camp here first? After the motorcade stopped, Long Dingtian and the person in charge of his Dragon Gate Express in Ninghai Province came over to greet them. Wu Qingming also came over to persuade them. That's right. Actually, everyone is a little tired. Although we are all masters here, after a little rest, the people behind will also be able to catch up and join us tomorrow morning. At that time, we can set off again, so that we won't be taken advantage of by others, right? Sect leader Wu is right. Chief Chen, you are too unreasonable. We are all sect leaders of our own sections. We ran out of our own homes, accompanied you from Yanjin to Ninghai, and then rushed to this lake without stopping. We didn't even have time to wash our faces. It's a little too embarrassing. The person who said this was a handsome Taoist priest in a white robe. He looked like he was only in his 20s, but his real age was said to be over 60. He was the current sect leader of Plain Clothes Sect, one of the 8 sections. He had a very high status in Jianghu, and his martial arts were even more unfathomable. In fact, many people wanted to say this, but they couldn't say it because of Chen Guang's face and their own status in Jianghu. In terms of strength and status in Jianghu, the sect leader of plain-clothes sect, Taoist priest Sang Song, could be said to be second only to the sect leaders of the three aristocratic families, such as the Wen family. It was just right for him to say this. Chen Guang understood that these people seemed to have defected to the Guangding General Office, but after all, they were different from real soldiers. It was impossible for them to completely listen to him. They weren't so obedient. If they didn't have a bit of arrogance, they wouldn't have been able to overcome obstacles and reach this level on martial arts. He couldn't be too excessive, and he always had to consider the feelings of these unruly thugs. Well, Senior Tsang Song of Plain Clothes sect is right. From the afternoon when we set off from Yanjin until now, we have been rushing for almost 10 hours without a good rest. Then, we will set up camp here and enter the mountain early tomorrow morning. Under Chen Guang's order, everyone was relieved. With their power, they wouldn't be really tired, but being ordered around like this, they couldn't catch their breath and felt suffocated. Taoist Sang Song saw that his words were effective, his face rose, and his heart felt good. But he was also afraid that Chen Guang would hold a grudge, so he came up and said, "Chief Chen, we Jianghu people are not people who are afraid of death, afraid of hardship and tiredness. But Poison Sect and Dark Sect, these two evil sects have been in Jianghu for a long time. 10 years ago, they were also very powerful, and could be said to be the top 2 sects among the 8 big sects, second only to the 3 big aristocratic families. It's hard to guarantee that they don't have any trump cards. I thought that there will be a big battle, so I thought that it's better for us to maintain our peak condition, so that when we face the enemy, there won't be any accidents." Chen Guang nodded. Senior Tsang Song is right, it was Junior who didn't think it through. If you give me face, I'll also give you face. Then things will be easy to deal with. Of course, they wouldn't let the masters of the big sects set up the military tents, but the other 200 military elites who accompanied them. Modern military tents were much more convenient to use than ancient ones. About 10 minutes later, densely packed tents were set up by Ninghai Lake, arranged in a row along the shore of the lake. Chen Guang took Long Ding Tian, Xian Qin, Wu Miaowan, Shui Lin, and Chu Hanji with him to study the map in his tent. Wu Miaowan fiddled with the map and asked, "From here into the mountain, there are dense forests and gravel all the way. It's convenient for us martial artists, but those soldiers, their individual weapons weigh dozens of kilograms. Won't such a long-distance movement consume too much energy?" Shui Lin shook her head and said, "No, those who come here are the elites of the army. They can carry dozens of kilograms of weight for a whole day, so it's not a problem for them to walk in the mountains and forests for a dozen kilometers." Chen Guang pointed to the map and asked, "The map shows that there is a valley here, and it goes all the way inside. Can we go in directly from here?" The guide that Long Ding Tian found shook his head. "No, this valley is extremely humid and full of poisonous miasma. If it's an inner-strength martial artist, they can barely pass through, but they may not be unscathed, but it's difficult for those soldiers." Letting out a sigh, Chen Guang continued, "Damn it. It's a pity that we can't figure out their exact location. Otherwise, we could have gotten a bunch of missiles from those old men and blow them up." Shui Lin shook her head and denied, "Director Chen, your idea is not very practical. We ordinary people know how to build air raid shelters when marching to war. According to the previous intelligence, the 2 Jianghu sects have been hiding here for a long time, and they may have dug dozens of meters underground. If they hide and don't come out, even a blanket missile attack may not be able to destroy them. Damn, it feels like these 2 are so professional." Chen Guang was a little speechless. Among the people present, he was the most senior official, but in fact, he seemed to know nothing. He was a literal, ignorant and incompetent military supervisor. At this moment, there was a sudden noise from the communication device. "We found the enemy." "Huh, Dai Quan, you lost to me again this time." The person who spoke was the leader of the Six-Sword sect, Zhuge Ling, who was in charge of patrolling and guarding. He sounded a little excited. After everyone set up camp, the Xinxing clan and the Six Swords sect each took on half of the security duties. This time, the two sects each sent close to 10 people. Obviously, the treatment of the Thousand Despair sect and the Thousand Flower Valley made many people think. The Xinxing clan and the Six Swords sect, who had failed in their pursuit of the 4 fugitives and only found 4 corpses, seemed to be holding back their anger and wanted to prove themselves again. Compared to the other sects, these 2 mid-tier sects, which were one of the 27 sects, were much more diligent. They were not as strong as the Plainclothes clan or the Fist clan, nor were they willing to hand over their sex techniques without reservation. They also did not have Lolas like Enchanting and Wu Miaowan who surrounded the director from the beginning. However, they wanted to catch up in the new situation and be valued, so of course, they had to work harder. Let's go take a look. Qin Guang hurriedly rushed out with his men. When they arrived at the place, the 10 experts of the Six Swords sect were all standing proudly with their swords on their backs. Dai Quan of the Xinxing clan, who was not far away, stared at Zhuge Ling with a red face and neck. You damn Zhuge, why didn't you leave one for me? Zhuge Ling had a smug look on his face. Just a few spies in the early stage of skin strength. They are not worth mentioning. I just had to move my fingers and they would be gone. I did not stop for a moment. Sorry, brother Dai. Qin Guang walked closer and saw more than 10 corpses lying on the ground. All of them were dressed in black robes, hiding their heads and tails. Aren't there more than 10 people here? Zhuge Ling cupped his hands at Qin Guang. Reporting to the director, these 10 people should be spies from the Poison clan. They are good at using poison, but the elders of the Six Swords sect struck first. There are 5 skin strength martial artists, and the rest are just bone strength dregs. They are not worth mentioning. Qin Guang's mouth twitched. Be reasonable, if the director in front of you is a chicken with muscle strength and skin strength is dregs, then what am I? Director, I am not talking about you. Zhuge Ling immediately reacted and explained. Qin Guang smiled helplessly. All right. The more you say, the more embarrassed I am. He did not expect that the other party would dare to strike first and send out spies. Dai Quan, who was at the side, came forward. He first glared at Zhuge Ling, and then said, Director, our whereabouts may have been exposed. How about I lead the masters of my Xinxing clan to investigate first, lest they abscond overnight? Qin Guang thought about it and was a little hesitant. Dai Quan said again, Director, you don't have to worry. Although the people of the Xinxing clan may not be ranked in the Jianghu when it comes to fighting head-on, our ability to pursue and escape is top-notch. Even the people from the 8 major sects, the Poison clan and the Dark clan, can't keep us here. All right, thank you, Senior Dai. Qin Guang finally agreed to Dai Quan's suggestion. Dai Quan raised his eyebrows at Zhuge Ling proudly. He turned around and disappeared into the darkness with the people of the Xinxing clan. After a few ups and downs, these people stepped on the shrubbery and flew forward. However, they did not make the slightest sound. He was not bragging. The Qinggong of the Xinxing clan could be said to be the best in the Jianghu. It was much better than Enchanting, who was also good at movement. Chapter 890. As soon as the people from Xinxing clan left, the task of guarding fell on the Six Swords sect. Senior Zhuge, do you want to find a few more people to help you? Qin Guang asked casually. Zhuge Ling waved his hand generously. Chief Qin, don't look down on me. Our Six Swords sect used to be a sharp blade under the emperor. 10 people from our sect are enough to handle such a small matter. Moreover, we have many masters here. Even if the 2 evil sects send more spies, they will only be small fries. They won't dare to invade us. After a brief pondering, Qin Guang felt that it made sense. Then I'll have to trouble Senior Zhuge. Chief Qin, you are too polite. After returning to the tent, Qin Guang thought that it would be dawn the next day before the reinforcements arrived. It would be a waste of time to keep the others here. Therefore, he asked the others to rest while he sat in the tent and played with his phone. He couldn't sleep. He didn't know if he was excited, nervous, or looking forward to something. He shouldn't care about the internal force martial artists. Maybe with his personality, if he hadn't been involved, he would have turned a blind eye to it. For example, if Wenwen's sudden disappearance didn't make him so anxious, he wouldn't have been so impatient. He would have taken his time to plan. In a sense, he was indeed a selfish person. He rolled around in the sleeping bag, but there was no cute girl to warm his bed. Xin Qin was dragged away by her master, and Wu Miaowan, the vixen, couldn't be counted on. At about 3:30 in the morning, he got out of the sleeping bag, walked out of the tent alone, and went to the lake in Ninghai. The autumn wind in September carried a faint fishy smell unique to the saltwater lake. It blew gently from the surface of Ninghai and blew on Qinguang's face. The cold moonlight danced wildly on the sparkling surface of the lake. The mottled glow was like a mischievous fairy. The sound of water came from the other side of the endless saltwater lake. It passed through Qinguang's eardrums and flew to the mountain behind him. The sky was clear and cloudless, and the stars were twinkling. This was a scenery that could not be seen in the city. Qinguang simply lay down and pressed his back against the warm or cool beach. He put his hands behind his head and looked at the stars in the sky. He didn't know which one was the real star and which one was the eye he borrowed from the old men in Beijing. Qinguang knew that he might have to kill a lot of people this time. If he had a choice, he didn't want to kill. But now, the wicked would be tortured by the wicked. Someone had to stand up and clean up the malignant tumors of the Jianghu that the secular power could not punish. Unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, the person sitting in this position was him. Worst comes to worst, I won't treat them as real people. I'll just treat them as NPCs in my world of cups. Just like in the second punishment realm, he had single-handedly slaughtered the entire world-shattering Holy Tribe, which was the group of assassins from the world-shattering organization. Wait, I can't think like that. Back then, when I was pulled into the punishment realm, it was either them or me who died. I had no choice. Also, almost everyone in the world-shattering organization had a path to death. Me killing all the world-shattering members was to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and to protect myself. This time, I'm taking the initiative to attack. My motive from the beginning was to kill. The Poison Sect and the Dark Sect were indeed evil sects that committed all kinds of crimes. They were unreasonable and had no regard for human life. They were stubborn and put up a stubborn resistance. It was obvious that they had lost the upper hand, but they were still so stubborn. They must be plotting something. It couldn't be anything good. But no matter how many reasons he came up with, he was here to kill. Did I bring the Holy Grail into the gutter after all? Although I always say that I'm still a mortal, my way of thinking is gradually moving towards the direction of an inner force martial artist. No, I might have gone to the extreme. Be it in the world of cups or in the real world, many people had died in my hands or in front of me without me realizing it. This was an experience that any ordinary person could never imagine in their entire life. I'm thinking like a god. Qinguang shook his head. He didn't know what was wrong with him recently. These days, there were always a lot of thoughts in his head. They were strange and meaningless. He thought that maybe it was because the matter of becoming an inner force martial artist hadn't been resolved yet. Although he said that he didn't care, he was still too depressed in his heart. Maybe I'll feel better after I resolve this matter? He still stared blankly at the sky. His mind was blank. Vaguely, he unconsciously saw the countless threads of faith that were flying towards him from the void. He even felt that he might have seen the omnipresent power of the Holy Grail. Speaking of which, what exactly happened to the 4 missing corpses? This matter was still bothering him. Forget it. Since he couldn't figure it out, he might as well borrow a phrase that Luli often said. Either he prayed for his own luck, or there would always be a way out. When he killed his way to the 2 evil sects, these problems would naturally be solved. At this moment, a series of hurried footsteps came from behind him. Qin Guang sat up straight and turned around. He saw Zhuge Ling, the head of the Six-Sword sect, jogging towards him. "Senior Zhuge, what's the matter?" Qin Guang stood up and asked. Zhuge Ling looked around and took out a sealed plastic bag from his pocket. There was a piece of cloth in it. "Chief Qin, I found this on a tree when I was patrolling." Zhuge Ling handed the plastic bag over as he spoke. Qin Guang took the bag and his pupils contracted. This piece of cloth was made of silk. Its original color should have been pure white, but it was now stained with blood. The blood had been there for 2 to 3 days and it looked a little mottled. "Chief Qin, this is?" Qin Guang didn't reply to Zhuge Ling. He frowned even more. He opened the bag and rubbed the cloth in his hand for a moment. "Senior Zhuge, where did you find this piece of cloth?" Finally confirming his thoughts, Qin Guang sniffed with a panicked expression. Zhuge Ling pointed in the direction of the deep mountains. "About 5 kilometers from where we set up camp, there is a dense forest halfway up the mountain. This piece of cloth was found on a big tree at the edge of the forest." "Take me there." "Are there any signs of fighting at the place where you found the cloth?" Qin Guang walked forward quickly and asked. Zhuge Ling replied, "No." As the two were walking, Abbess Xian Yuan suddenly came out of her tent. "Chief, where are you going in the middle of the night?" Zhuge Ling said without hesitation, "Abbess Xian Yuan, I found something over there, okay, don't ask." "Abbess Xian Yuan, please call Senior Wu." "Oh yes, call Boss Long and the guide he found. Let's go and see the situation." Abbess Xian Yuan hesitated a little. "But Chief Qin, what about your safety?" Qin Guang knew that her worry was reasonable, but this piece of cloth was clearly the white windbreaker that Wen Wen liked to wear. It should be in the position of her pocket. There was an ink mark about 2 millimeters long left by a signature pen. This was once accidentally touched by Qin Guang when he turned the pen. At that time, she was heartbroken and gave Qin Guang a good beating. He remembered it deeply. Finding pieces of Wenwen's clothes stained with blood nearby, was there anything worse than this in the world? He couldn't sit still for a second. Then invite Taoist Tsang Song from Plain Clothes Sect and Master Pan from Fist Sect. Abbess Xian Yuan was relieved and asked Wu Qingming to join them. The two split up. Abbess Xian Yuan went to wake up Long Ding Tian and his guide. Wu Qingming went to find Taoist Tsang Song from Plain Clothes Sect and Fist Tyrant Panda from Fist Sect, who were also masters of the 8 major sections. With these 2 people in charge, they could rest assured when traveling at night. Zhuge Ling was a little unhappy. Abbess Xian Yuan obviously doesn't believe in the strength of Six-Sword sect. With me and the 9 elders of Six-Sword sect, so what if the 2 evil sects come? Qin Guang waved his hand and said, "Abbess Xian Yuan is thinking for me. I know that Senior Zhuge is powerful, but it's always good to be careful." In fact, he was more anxious than Zhuge Ling, but this place was not like the city. The deep mountains and wild forests were a good place for an ambush. In less than a minute, a group of nearly 20 people followed Zhuge Ling's guidance and entered the mountain. Taoist Tsang Song and Fist Tyrant Master Pan not only came in person but also invited the elders from their sections. With the strength of the 8 major sects, this small team could be said to be the elites. Xian Qin and Wu Miaowan wanted to follow, but Qin Guang refused. Although Xian Qin and Wu Miaowan were geniuses, they were only at the peak of bone force. It would be useless to bring them along. "Chief Qin, in my opinion, we should have dragged everyone along. I keep having goosebumps all over my body." Along the way, Long Ding Tian gripped his large ringed sword tightly and spoke with a little uneasiness. Qin Guang shook his head. "I'm afraid I can't wait." "What's wrong?" "Don't ask so much. Let's talk when we get there." "All right," Long Ding Tian said embarrassedly. Qin Guang stared at Zhuge Ling, who was leading the way. He didn't realize that Long Ding Tian seemed to be a little more talkative than usual. He seemed to be unable to hide his excitement. The group moved very quickly. Although Chen Guang only had the cultivation of muscle force, his physical body was strong. Along the way, rocks flew under his feet, but his speed was not any slower than Long Ding Tian and his guide. "We're here. This is the place. I saw a flash of white light on a tree when I was passing by. I climbed up the tree and found this piece of cloth. After climbing over a mountain, coming out of the valley, and passing through a dense forest, Zhuge Ling finally stopped and pointed at a tree that was so wide that two people could hug it. Just as he said, this tree was indeed at the edge of the forest. However, this dense forest revealed a strange feeling because there was actually a boundless sea of fiery red flowers at the side of the dense forest, and even under the illumination of the quiet and beautiful moonlight, it revealed a dark and deep scarlet red color. Chen Guang couldn't care less and was too lazy to ask for help. He rushed up and used his Qilin arm. His fingertips dug into the tree trunk and climbed up. Soon, he reached the middle of the tree. He stopped beside a branch and hugged the branch as he slowly moved forward. On the other side, Zhuge Ling also stepped on the tree trunk and flew up horizontally. He landed beside Chen Guang and pointed at the place in front of him. "Chief Chen, this is the place." Chen Guang frowned. "If the clothes are stained with blood, then there should be blood on the branch, right? Why is there nothing here?" Suddenly, Zhuge Ling laughed. His voice was sinister and proud. It was 80% arrogant and 90% arrogant. It was very evil. "Of course there's nothing here. Because I've been carrying this piece of cloth with me all this time." Chen Guang's eyes widened. "What?" Before he finished speaking, he tilted his body and deliberately threw off the tree trunk. He fell down the tree like a head-on spring onion. Just as his head tilted, there was a flash of cold light. Zhuge Ling's sword suddenly cut through the position of his arm that was grabbing the tree trunk. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and let go in time. Otherwise, both of his arms would have been cut off at the base. Head down and feet up, Chen Guang, who was falling from the tree trunk, suddenly saw a dense crowd of heads peeking out from the sea of flowers. There were also countless cold lights that suddenly appeared from behind the dense forest. He understood what was going on. There were at least 100 people lying in ambush here. "I've been tricked. I've been ambushed. This is a trap. Zhuge Ling is a traitor." No wonder a group of spies from the poison sect came to their deaths out of nowhere. Coincidentally, they all fell into Zhuge Ling's hands. He had obviously used this trick to provoke the Xinqing sect leader, Dai Quan, who was in charge of guarding, to want to steal the credit. He had made Dai Quan take the initiative to scout in and put the security of the entire campsite in the hands of the Six-Sword sect. That was how he was able to set up this trap and lead me into it. What good acting skills, he even fooled me. No, maybe I've been too worried and impatient these past 2 days. I've lost my composure and neglected some details that I normally wouldn't have neglected. Looking at Zhuge Ling who was chasing him down from the tree, Chen Guang's anger was indescribable. "Zhuge Ling. You're courting death." Abbess Xian Huan, who was under the tree, was furious. She tiptoed and flew up from the ground. The horsetail whisk in her hand was emitting a silver light. Countless flying whisks flew towards Zhuge Ling's long sword that was aimed at Chen Guang's legs. Zhuge Ling was not afraid. His long sword vibrated and made a buzzing sound. He shook off the silver threads of Abbess Xian Huan's horsetail whisk and continued to stab down towards Abbess Xian Huan's head. "How dare a small fry from the Thousand Despair sect fight with me?" "Me too." Beside him, Wu Qingming also tiptoed and charged forward. Dozens of colorful damask flew out from her sleeves and swept towards Zhuge Ling like a venomous snake. As soon as the two of them started fighting, they used all their skills and the battle instantly became white-hot. Chen Guang finally landed on the ground. He almost fell head first onto the ground. Fortunately, his body was strong. Suddenly, the ground was soft mud, so he used his hands to support himself on the ground and rolled a few times to stabilize his body. On the other side, Abbess Xian Huan and Wu Qingming were already fighting with Zhuge Ling in midair. The swordsmanship of the Six Swords sect was extremely exquisite. As the sect leader of the Six Swords sect, Zhuge Ling was not at a disadvantage when he fought against two experts who were at the same cultivation level as him. At the same time, the other 9 sect elders of the Six Swords sect also drew their swords and charged towards Qinguang. "How dare you!" Taoist Vasp Kalo's words were like thunder. He took a step forward and opened up both of his hands. Under the burst of power, his robe fluttered in the wind and both of his palms pushed forward. A strong force burst out from both of his palms and forced the 3 elders of the Six Swords sect to retreat. "You're courting death." On the other side, Master Pan from the Fist faction first stomped on the ground, causing a rock the size of a human head to fly up. He waved his right hand and slammed it on the rock. The rock shook and turned into thousands of gravel that flew towards the other 3 sect elders of the Six Swords sect. Clanging sounds could be heard and sparks flew. The 3 sect elders of the Six Swords sect waved their swords like silver snakes and barely managed to block the power of the Fist Tyrant's punch. Long Dingtian held his great ring saber and rushed to Qinguang's side in panic. He shouted, "Chief Chen, run! I'll cover you." Chapter 891. All right. Qinguang knew that in this situation, with his current cultivation at the early stage of muscle strength, it would be useless for him to stay here. Instead, it would make the other people on his side hesitate to attack. He pressed the communication device to ask for help from the camp a few kilometers away while he retreated under the cover of Long Dingtian. The other 3 elders of Six Swords sect were already fighting with the other 2 experts brought by Taoist Tsang Song and Master Pan. The strength of the people from Six Swords sect was stronger than expected. Although this sect was only one of the 27 sects and ranked lower than Plain Clothes sect and Fist sect in the pugilistic world, it had obviously hidden its strength for many years. Now that it had exploded, it could be considered as showing its true ability. After Qinguang and Long Dingtian took 2 steps forward, they came to a halt. In just a few seconds, the experts from the 2 evil sects who were lying in ambush had surrounded the group so tightly that not even a drop of water could escape. In front of Qinguang, a tall man in black with disheveled hair stood in front of the crowd. Another thin man in a purple robe with a golden plume on his head and an iron umbrella on his back stood side by side with the tall man. Behind these 2 people, there were all kinds of experts, old and young, standing crookedly. These people were not the army, so there was no discipline or system. However, the aura of inner strength that emanated from them made the night air a little chilly. They were indeed evil sections. Even if these people were expressionless and their faces could only be vaguely seen under the moonlight, they still gave people a very gloomy feeling. They lived up to their identity as villains. On the other side, after a round of clanking sounds, Abbess Xian Yuan and Wu Qingming finally joined forces to repel Zhuge Ling and quickly floated to Qinguang's side. Abbess Xian Yuan's face was pale. "Chief Chen, leave quickly." Of the 2 in front, one was the Poison sect master, Demon Sovereign Jiu, and the other was the Dark sect master, Xie Junue. Standing behind them were the Poison sect's elder, Jiu He, and the Dark sect's vice sect master, Ghost Shadow. They are all experts. Qinguang's scalp tingled when he heard the lineup of the opposite side. Thoughts flashed through his mind, and he made a decisive comparison between the strength of both sides that had been displayed so far. Due to the betrayal of the Six Swords sect, there were only 10 of them left. Among these 10 people, he was basically a mascot. Against those at the initial stage of Pai Jin he might still be able to struggle a little, but against a master at the peak of Pai Jin, just based on the cloud-expelling palm that Taoist Vasp Kalo casually threw out, it was enough for him to explode on the spot. If Abbess Xian Yuan and Sect Master Wu worked together, they could deal with 6-sword sects. Zhuge Ling Taoist Tsang Song of the Plain Clothes sect and Master Pan of the Fist sect could each deal with 3 elders of the 6-sword sect. If the other 2 elders from the 2 sects worked together, they would be able to deal with the remaining 3 elders from the 6-sword sect. After careful calculations, if Long Dingtian and his guide could get rid of the sect masters of the Poison sect and Dark sect, as well as Zhou He, Ghost Shadow, and the 4 great guardians of the Dark sect, there was also the Golden Flower Granny that he had met once. Well, if Boss Long could deal with over 100 enemies by himself, then it wasn't impossible for him to fight today. I'd be a fool to believe you. What the hell am I doing? Everyone, surrender yourselves. We don't have much time to waste with you. I will count to 3. If you don't put down your weapons obediently, don't blame us for being impolite. The tall and burly sect master of the Poison sect, Demon Venerable Jiu, had a smug smile on his face as he spoke with a sharp voice that didn't match his physique. Qin Guang silently looked in the direction of the campsite. When he landed, he had already sent out a distress signal. The experts over there were rushing over at full speed, and it would only take them a few minutes to reach here. It seemed like it was time for him to show off his silver tongue. What was he supposed to do to buy himself a few more minutes? Ha 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 ha. Funny, this is really funny. With his hands behind his back, Qin Guang took a step forward, disregarding his own safety, and stood at the front of the crowd. What are you laughing at? 3. Demon Venerable Jiu squinted his eyes and counted while looking at Qin Guang. Qin Guang turned back to look at Zhuge Ling, his mind racing. Do you really think that I don't know that Zhuge Ling is up to no good? Aren't you looking down on me too much? In the autopsy report, Zhuge Ling purposely didn't mention the strange cracks on the corpses, right? As he spoke, he was full of energy and confidence. Not only did he not panic when he was surrounded, he even put on an air of confidence. Unexpectedly, the moment he said this, Demon Venerable Jiu and Evil Monarch Yu's expressions changed, while Zhuge Ling's body trembled. Evidently, Qin Guang had dug out an insignificant topic from the depths of his heart to stall for time. In the end, it struck the greatest taboo in the hearts of these people. Old Master Guang expressed that although this matter could show that he had taken every possibility into account, it was actually not a good thing. What do you know? Zhuge Ling's hand that was holding the sword was trembling, and Demon Venerable Jiu also forgot to continue counting. Qin Guang did not dare to answer Zhuge Ling's words. Although he suspected that someone had obtained the power of the earth element, he did not know who that person was, nor did he know what state that person was in. He also did not understand how that person talked to the 2 evil sections. After thinking about it, he decided to continue acting. I know everything. Do you really think that I dare to come here today without any backing? Humph. Surrender obediently and I will spare your lives. Qin Guang put his hands behind his back, held his head high, and straightened his neck. Have you been shocked by my aura? Do you think that I am beating you at your own game? Not to mention the 2 evil sects and the traitors of 6-sword sect, even Xine Yuan and Wu Qingming looked at each other with some doubt and joy on their faces. They really thought that Qin Guang really had other tricks up his sleeves. At this moment, the back of Qin Guang's head shook violently, and a strong force came from behind him, almost cutting off his neck. A strong and abundant inner strength came from the back of Qin Guang's head, and in an instant, it flowed all over his body, completely blocking his blood flow and wrapping around his bones. There was a crackling sound like firecrackers exploding in his body, and in an instant, all the bones in his body were twisted by this terrible inner strength. He was suddenly attacked from behind, and all the inner strength was injected into his body. Although his perfect body was strong, the opponent's inner strength was at its peak. Moreover, he was attacked by a sneak attack, and he could not resist it. A heart-wrenching pain pierced through his head like a high-voltage electric current. Qin Guang's vision turned black as he slowly collapsed to the ground. When he looked back when he landed on the ground, he saw Long Dingtian's smug face. If it weren't for the fact that he had experienced this pain countless times in the heavenly Holy Grail, Qin Guang would have completely fainted, but now he barely held on. Long Ding Tian was also surprised. He did not expect that this sneak attack did not smash all the bones in Chen Guang's body, but only twisted them. Long Ding Tian. You're courting death. Abbess Xian Yuan and Wu Qingming, who were standing at the back, changed their expressions. Zhuge Ling's betrayal was already a heavy blow, and Long Ding Tian was also a traitor. The two of them roared angrily and pounced forward. Unexpectedly, Long Ding Tian threw the big ring saber in his hand to the ground, grinned wildly, clenched his fists, and punched at Abbess Xian Yuan and Wu Qingming at the same time. He shouted, "You two, take my thunder fist. This is my real kung fu." At the same time, there were two loud noises. Both Xian Yuan and Wu Qingming flew backward at a speed faster than they rushed forward. Blood spurted from their mouths, and they fell straight into a sea of fiery red flowers behind them. No one expected that Long Ding Tian, who was originally weak and not worth mentioning, could actually knock back two masters at the peak of skin force with one punch. His thunder fist was as powerful as thunder, swift and overbearing. Chen Guang lay on the ground powerlessly, looking back at Long Ding Tian's smug smile. Countless images flashed through his mind, and he felt extremely bitter. This guy was not pretending at all. His strength was much stronger than he imagined, at least at the same level as Taoist Sang Song. Although his punch just now did not kill him, it completely crippled him. At this moment, even twisting his neck was extraordinarily strenuous. Taoist Sang Song and Master Pan looked bitter and were about to rush in the direction of Long Ding Tian again, but Long Ding Tian bent his waist and sneered while carrying Chen Guang. "Both of you, why don't you surrender?" Xian Yuan and Wu Qingming, who had been knocked into the sea of flowers, stood up again. Blood flowed from the corners of their mouths, and they were on the verge of collapsing. Abbess Xian Yuan still could not believe it. "Long Ding Tian, why did you do this?" Wu Qingming said, "There's poison in the tea." Long Ding Tian laughed loudly, "Yes, it's indeed poisonous. Both of you, the taste of the poison sex cultivation dissipation powder is not very pleasant, right?" Golden Flower Woman also walked out from the crowd with a proud face. "Wu Qingming, you can't figure out why you can't smell it with your ability, right? Aren't you a little too conceited? How can the lost secret medicine of the dark sect, cultivation dissipation powder, be easy to get? If you don't touch the guiding medicine, it will be invisible and colorless. Even if you come here, you won't be able to feel it. But if you touch the guiding medicine, it will instantly take effect. No matter what realm you are at, you will become a useless person. As for the medicinal catalyst, it is naturally the pollen from the sea of blood-red flowers beneath you." As soon as Golden Flower Woman finished her words, Abbess Xian Yuan and Wu Qingming collapsed to the ground. Their internal strength poured out from their bodies like a tide. Wu Qingming's originally glossy skin actually aged in an instant. Crow's feet appeared at the corners of her eyes, and her black hair began to turn silver from the roots like snow. The two seniors had lost all their martial arts. Chen Guang rolled his eyes. Although he did not understand the principle of the cultivation dissipation powder mentioned by Long Ding Tian, it was not important. What was important was that he had suffered a huge setback this time. Many doubts that he hadn't noticed before finally surfaced slowly at this moment. From a long time ago, Long Ding Tian was a member of the Poison Sect and the Dark Sect. He had signed an endorsement contract with him. The battle between him and Golden Flower Woman in the Five Capital was a show for him and Xian Qin. He had always been a spy hidden in the upright sect. He and Golden Flower Woman were not enemies of life and death like they were on the surface. All of this was to deceive the trust of the upright sect and himself. Not only that, when he arrived at the villa area yesterday, the two seemingly brainless security guards were actually deliberately arranged by Long Ding Tian. It seemed as though they had accidentally revealed the 8 luxury cars, but they had purposely revealed the flaw so that Long Ding Tian could use it to smooth things over and further weaken his guard. As for the tea, there was indeed something wrong with it. But because of the exquisite secret medicine of the poison sect, it would not have taken effect at that time. This further made him lower his guard. This was also a trick that Long Dingtian deliberately sold. He knew that he was a smart person and would have a lot of ideas. But the biggest disadvantage of a smart person was that after thinking too much, it was easy to be overconfident. In addition, his information was mixed with some truth and some falsehood. There was no doubt that the Poison Sect and the Dark Sect were indeed in Ninghai Province. The information he provided was also true. Because of this, I believed all of Long Dingtian's words and led the team here. But I didn't expect to fall into this trap today. So far, there was only one doubt, and that was, where did Jiang Yage get the information that made him completely convinced that the information was correct? Qin Guang did not believe that Jiang Yage would harm him. She was just used. In short, the ultimate goal of all their plans was to capture him alive. So now they succeeded. The bustling sound in the distance was getting closer and closer. The reinforcements from the camp were rushing all the way. But they seemed to be too late. Well, kill the two old women, and then let's go. Demon Venerable Jiao waved his hand calmly and ordered. Ghost Shadow of the Dark Sect suddenly appeared. The next moment, he turned into a black shadow and appeared in front of Abbess Xian Yuan and Wu Qingming, who were sitting on the ground. The two looked at each other, and their eyes were full of remorse. Things became like this today because Long Dingtian, who had been cooperating with them for a long time, betrayed them first. If it weren't for this guy, why would they come to Ninghai Province in such a hurry? They recalled that when Qin Guang was suspicious of Long Dingtian, the two of them were the ones who tried to persuade Qin Guang to help Long Dingtian explain. That was also the reason why Qin Guang misjudged the situation. Qin Guang. I'm sorry. You don't have to do it. I'll do it myself. Ghost Shadow said sinisterly from the cloak, then please hurry up. Abbess Xian Yuan nodded silently. She pinched the bottom of the horsetail whisk and pulled out a small dagger from the root. She was about to slash her neck with it. Wait a minute. Qin Guang suddenly yelled, and Abbess Xian Yuan's dagger stopped moving. What else do you want to do at this time? Stalling for time? Dark Sect leader Xie Junhua sneered. Qin Guang didn't bother about him and turned around to speak to Long Dingtian. Chief Long, seeing that the two seniors were once friends with you, and seeing that we are acquaintances, let me go to the side of the two seniors and let me send them off with my eyes. Qin Guang pursed his lips tightly. In this situation, he really couldn't think of any way to save the two seniors' lives. He could only pin his hopes on the heavenly Holy Grail in his sling bag. If the two of them were really alive, if the two of them were as lucky as Ling Qin, perhaps they could continue to live in the heavenly Holy Grail. It was better than dying like this. Long Dingtian hesitated for a moment, and a complicated look flashed in his eyes. Okay. The next moment, he carried Qin Guang and stood in the sea of flowers. He was standing 1 or 2 meters in front of the two seniors. Long Dingtian loosened his hand, and Qin Guang collapsed like mud. He supported his broken bones with his last breath and sat on the ground. Qin Guang slowly raised his head and looked at Abbess Xian Yuan and Wu Qingming in front of him. The endless sea of blood-red flowers seemed as bright as day under the moonlight. Qin Guang's eyes were bloodshot. Seniors, I'm incompetent. I'm the one who harmed you. Xian Yuan smiled. No, Qin Guang, this is Qingming's and my fault. Wu Qingming also said, Wu Qingming, boast of my intelligence, but I didn't expect to end up like this. Ghost Shadow, who was standing behind the two of them, urged, if you don't die, I will personally send you on your way. Abbess Xian Yuan's pupils shrank. The dagger flashed coldly, and blood splattered. Wu Qingming took the dagger from Abbess Xian Yuan, who was lying in a pool of blood. Her eyes were momentarily confused. She gritted her teeth and slashed her neck with the dagger. 2 drops of blood flew over from the front and landed on the back of Qin Guang's hand. Smelling the blood in his nose, Qin Guang's mind was blood red. Suddenly, it became empty and he didn't know what was going on. All right, let's go. Long Dingtian lifted Qin Guang and carried him on his back. He took the lead and ran into the depths of the mountain. The goal had been achieved. The people from the evil sects didn't besiege the people from Plain Cloth sect and Fist sect. Instead, they retreated like the tide. Taoist Sang Song and Master Pan were powerful and couldn't be taken down easily. Instead of ending up being surrounded to kill 2 more people, the people from the 2 evil sects wanted to be safe. Chief Qin, don't blame me. I have my own master. There's nothing too deceitful in a war between 2 armies. If you want to blame someone, blame Xian Yuan and Wu Qingming. It's their trust in me that misled your judgment. Otherwise, you wouldn't be fooled so easily. After an unknown period of time, when Qin Guang woke up, he was still rising and falling on Long Dingtian's back. Long Dingtian knew that he had woken up, so he started to enlighten him. Qin Guang didn't want to pay attention to him. Although his life wasn't in danger for the time being, he thought about how he led the world's experts to Ninghai province in a mighty manner. He originally wanted to destroy the people from the 2 evil sects easily. He didn't expect that he would be tricked from the beginning. Who was the person behind the scenes? He had taken every possibility into account and laid an inescapable net, waiting for him to jump into it. He could even calculate the grudge between the old masters in Yanjing and him. Then, he used his unconditional trust in Jiang Yage and deliberately sold real information to Jiang Yage to make him make up his mind. Now that he had become a prisoner, not only could he not help Wenwen, but he would also be used as a hostage to threaten Wenwen. The most painful thing was the deaths of Abbess Xian Yuan and Wu Qingming. Although he didn't have much contact with them and didn't have deep feelings for them, they were Xian Qin and Wu Miaowan's masters after all. They treated the 2 little Lolas like their masters and mothers. At this moment, they should be looking at the corpses of the 2 seniors and grieving. Long Dingtian, I don't care who your backer is. I can guarantee that all of you will die. Qin Guang finally spoke. Long Dingtian didn't care and laughed. Of course we will die. Who doesn't die in this world? That depends on how you die. You die on the spot, you die as a dissolute ghost among thousands of flowers, you die as well, you die as an old man. What on earth are you after? Qin Guang asked again. Long Dingtian hesitated for a moment before replying, what am I after? I want to be immortal. Does your backer have the ability to do that? I didn't believe it before, but I believe it recently. Long Dingtian. You've said too much. The golden flower woman turned around and glared at him. Long Dingtian laughed. What's wrong with that? Anyway, Qin Guang won't live for long. Once Wenwen dies, he won't be able to live anymore. Chief Qin, don't worry. I will personally send you on your way and won't let anyone torture you. I guarantee that you will lose your senses the moment you close your eyes. Then I will have to thank you. Qin Guang suddenly laughed, and it was an exceptionally strange laugh. Just now, his consciousness took a trip to the heavenly Holy Grail. Lu Li was still in seclusion. Lu Ming saw that his mental state wasn't right and said a few more words to him. Firstly, you won't die. Secondly, you have been stained with the blood of that nun and that coquettish old vixen. Now, the 2 of them have been reborn in the sea of time. Thirdly, Lu Li's matter will be done soon. Chapter 892. Previously, when Qin Guang was at the camp, no one felt that he was of much use. He was more like a mascot. But now that he was captured, and the 2 deputy directors fainted because of the loss of their teacher, the camp by the lake of Ninghai suddenly fell into a state of no leader. Then, many of the Jianghu experts who relied on the Guangding General Office realized that the situation was not good. Now, they were in an awkward situation, and no one could make a decision. Everyone was even more at a loss as to what to do. It could even be said that Qin Guang was captured, and everyone's confidence was shaken. It seemed that the Guangding General Office of Hua Xia was not as powerful as imagined. He looked like he was useless, but in fact, they really could not do without him. His identity not only represented the government, but he was also the world's #1 expert. His identity was not considered noble, but it was indeed enough to convince the public. But now that he was lost, the rest of the people were in a mess. The special agents of the Guangdong General Office and the Jianghu people blamed each other. No one could stand the other, and no one was willing to listen to the other. Originally, with the status and strength of the Jianghu leaders of plainclothes faction and fist faction, even if there was an accident, it would not be a problem for them to take over the authority of Qin Guang and the 2 deputy directors and give orders. But now, Qin Guang was captured under the eyes of these 2 people. As the leaders of the 8 major sects, they were highly respected and had profound skills. Although it was not good for others to say anything in front of them, it was hard to know what was in a man's heart. It was hard to guarantee that no one would secretly suspect whether plainclothes faction and fist faction had been bribed. At this time, the words of the 2 sects were not so useful. The 2 evil sects had taken great pains to capture Qin Guang, so it was impossible that they had no other purpose. It was not difficult to guess that the 2 evil sects and the defecting 6 Swords faction were very likely to use Chief Chen to make a fuss. Maybe their real target was Wen Zhaowen. Once they succeeded and Wen Zhaowen died, did this mean that the Huaxia officials sent out troops to suppress them was all bark and no bite, and they still failed in the end? As the saying went, when the team grew bigger, it became harder to lead the team. This was the current situation. Even their leader had been kidnapped, so the people below naturally had their own thoughts. Xue Lin accepted the responsibility in the face of danger. Although his words were still useful in the Huaxia military, he really had no right to speak on the Jianghu people's side. He could only stabilize the situation. On the other hand, after the news of Qin Guang's capture reached Beijing, there was an uproar. When that kid was safe and sound, the group of old men in Yanjing didn't think that he was of much use. But now that he was suddenly lost, they only knew how to cherish him after losing him. The situation in Yanjing immediately turned into a mess. Someone proposed at the meeting that since they now knew the general location of the other party, it was better to take advantage of the fact that they were in Ninghai, a sparsely populated province, to launch a large-scale precise attack and blow them up. Chao Jingming, Jiang Yuanshao's nemesis, was the leader of those who held this view. Jiang Yuanshao and Xue Zhan, on the other hand, strongly opposed the idea. They suggested that even missiles might not be able to completely destroy the enemy. If they failed to achieve their goal, the consequences would be unimaginable. Moreover, now that Qin Guang was being held hostage, they couldn't possibly blow up the hostage as well, right? The 2 groups argued fiercely in the meeting, almost to the point of fighting. Until the end of the meeting, there was still no conclusion. I still feel that this is not so simple. Chao Jingming is too optimistic about burning the bridge after crossing it. If it was so easy to blow up these people, we wouldn't have to be so troubled. Have you contacted Xue Lin? What do the people there think? After the meeting, Jiang Yuanshao complained to Xue Zhan in private. Xue Zhan sighed. Now the 2 deputy chiefs are not in the mood to manage things, and the others don't have a legitimate identity. 2 major forces in the Jianghu people have betrayed them, and they are very suspicious of each other. Xue Lin can only barely control the situation and prevent it from becoming a complete mess. But there are already people who want to retreat, and there are also people who are on good terms with sect leader Xian and sect leader Wu who want to fight to the death. 100 people have 100 ideas. Sigh. Qin Guang, this kid, sigh. Jiang Yuanshao sighed, his head full of bumps. Why was he taken away just like that? At this moment, Jiang Yuanshao's personal guard walked in quickly. He glanced at Xue Zhan and hesitated to speak. Jiang Yuanshao urged, just say it, I have nothing to hide from old Xue. The personal guard said, Boss, Miss Jiang is here. Jiang Yuanshao was stunned. Why is Yargo here at this time? Miss Jiang said she has something very important to talk to you about. Jiang Yuanshao thought for a moment. Although Jiang Yage was the apple of her family's eye and was quite favored, she had never participated in political or military affairs. She only focused on being a celebrity, singing whenever she wanted, acting in movies whenever she wanted. Fortunately, she had made a name for herself and didn't embarrass her family. This time, even if the news of Chen Guang's capture reached her, she should know that with his personality, he would definitely find a way to rescue him and would never sit back and do nothing. Although Yargo was usually not a proper person, she was actually quite sensible. She knew that he was in a terrible situation, so why would she come here? Let her in. Jiang Yuanchao ordered. I'm sorry, old Shui. Shuizhan waved his hand. Maybe Yargo was asked by Shiyue to find out more about the situation. No matter what, for the sake of Shiyue's love for Chen Guang, as the elders, we must try our best. If we can't do it, we can just wait for the other party to negotiate. As long as Chen Guang is not dead, there is still room for negotiation. We can also discuss the conditions they put forward. As long as it is not too much, we can still negotiate within the scope of expediency. As the two were talking, Jiang Yage pushed the door open with a pale face and walked in quickly. She first looked at Shuizhan, but without much hesitation, she swallowed and said, Dad, there is something wrong with Uncle Chao. Jiang Yuanchao and Shuizhan were stunned at first, not understanding what Jiang Yage meant. Jiang Yuanchao said, You can't just say things like that. Jiang Yage lost control of her emotions at that moment. It was a conspiracy from the beginning. Those people wanted to lure Chen Guang there. I know you wanted to hide Wenwen's whereabouts from Chen Guang, so I wanted to help him, so I secretly asked someone to find out. Then Uncle Chao asked someone to tell me that Wenwen's mobile phone had a signal at the border between Ningxia and Ninghai. I told this to Chen Guang, and that was the reason why Chen Guang would immediately set off with his men. That's why I fell into their trap. I regret it so much. Jiang Yuanchao and Shuizhan looked at each other. Yargo, you really can't just say things like that. There must be evidence. Chao Jingming is also a general of the same rank as us. We can't just convict him based on one side of the story. Moreover, the most important thing for us now is to find a way to rescue Chen Guang. As for the investigation of the mole, let's postpone it for the time being. Jiang Yage burst into tears. I know that, but I feel terrible. Didn't Uncle Chao get punished for speaking rudely to Chen Guang during the military exercise? He hated me at that time. Shut up. Jiang Yuanchao interrupted her without hesitation. Don't say any more. Now is not the time to pursue this matter. Based on Chao Jingming's performance in the meeting, Jiang Yuanchao knew that his daughter's guess was probably right. But this kind of speculation, no matter how reasonable it sounded, could never be used as evidence, let alone punish Chao Jingming for it. Jiang Yage cried even harder. Jiang Yuanchao didn't know how to comfort her, so he patted her shoulder. My good daughter, as your father, I promise you, if the other party threatens us with Chen Guang's life and wants to negotiate with us, even if I have to sacrifice my principles, I will give in on the negotiation table, okay? Shuizhan opened his mouth but didn't say anything. He felt that it was not right for Jiang Yuanchao to make such a promise to Jiang Yage, but there seemed to be no other way. After a while, Jiang Yage finally calmed down, but she didn't stay for long. She said that she had to go back to compensate Jin Shiyue and left. Sigh. Jiang Yuanchao heaved a long sigh. Shuizhan sighed as well. After a while, Lin Jingwei and Bai Hua, who flew to Yanjing overnight, also arrived. Their intentions were more or less the same. No one really wanted to give up on Chen Guang, but in such a hurry, no one could do anything about it. Everything was passive, and they could only wait for the other party to contact them. On the other hand, in the campsite by Ninghai Lake, everyone was arguing. Some people from the sects were already planning to leave. Shui Lin didn't have much experience, and she didn't have much power in the military. In addition to her young age, she couldn't show her authority in the face of these internal force users, whom she could only look up to in the past. The two armies are at war. We haven't even seen the person, and the commander is already captured. What's the point of fighting? Why don't we just disband and go back? In the future, we can still take care of our own business. What a joke. Shut up. I think the blood cloth sect is also a traitor. Who doesn't know that you guys like to train with the blood of children? You're slandering us. Since the founding of the nation, the blood cloth sect has never done anything that harms living beings. We all buy and sell openly. Children are not deceived. The blood collection vehicle is also internationally advanced. One needle at a time, strictly sterilized, and resolutely put an end to infectious diseases. All right. Old man, take a break. You're still thinking of advertising yourself at a time like this. My friends in the Jianghu, no matter what, we used to be small businesses in the wild. Although we didn't have to worry about food and clothing, we were always afraid that one day, those in power would suddenly act like the ancient emperors and use their martial arts to break the law and kill us. It was Chief Chen who made the Guangding headquarters happen. Everyone had a place to settle down. Although they had less freedom than when Ouyang Tianqing was in charge, they had more peace. I feel that we can't turn a blind eye to the burning of bridges after crossing the river. That's right. Chief Chen was captured because the people from the evil sects slapped our faces. What's most important in the Jianghu? Face is the most important. Loyalty is the most important. Chief Chen is our leader. Now that our leader has been captured, are we going to turn around and run? What will the history books say? The history books will scold us for practicing martial arts all our lives, but at the critical moment, we become turtles. Our children and grandchildren will be a laughing stock for generations. This old man can't afford to lose face. Old Baldy, you make it sound nice. Then what do you think we should do now? Kill our way in to save them? Who's going to lead the team? You? Aren't you afraid that the people from the evil sects will kill the hostages? Are you going to take responsibility if Chief Chen gets killed? Even so, we can't just turn around and run, right? Shui Lin sat in the crowd and watched the group of people making a racket. He tried several times to speak up to maintain order, but he couldn't even raise his voice. Chapter 893. Almost everyone here could kill him in a second. He was only a squad leader before he joined the military. Even in the Guangding General Headquarters, he was only a temporary commander during the mission to annihilate the broken world. In the end, he fell into a trap and was captured. When he came back to his senses, the broken world was inexplicably destroyed. He had no credit, no ability, no experience. He was basically a nobody. Naturally, he did not have any prestige. At this moment, the tent was suddenly opened. Two little girls appeared outside the tent. They were Xian Qin and Wu Miaowan, who had been crying for a whole night. Their eyes were red and swollen. The leaders and elders of the various sects in the tent temporarily quieted down. Although the Thousand Despair sect and the Thousand Flower Valley were small sects in the martial arts world, they moved quickly. They had long been in contact with the Huaxia government and were now the deputy director of the Guangding General Headquarters. No matter how inexperienced these two little girls were, at least at this moment, they represented the official orthodoxy. People who practiced martial arts paid attention to orthodoxy and status. Moreover, these two deputy directors had lost their master because of this matter. The people of Jianghu understood the importance of the master's inheritance. No one would rub salt on the two girls' wounds at this time. Their master had sacrificed his life for the country. Now that his corpse was still warm, it was reasonable to show some respect. Otherwise, they would be looked down upon by the people of Jianghu. Even if Chen Guang was dead, the people of Jianghu did not think that the Guangding General Headquarters would be disbanded. What if these two girls continued to be the deputy directors in the future? Seniors, someone from the Dark Clan contacted us just now. Although Xian Qin's eyes were red and swollen, her expression was exceptionally firm. What did they say? Taoist Song of the Plain Clothes sect was the most anxious. Just as the person said, Chen Guang was captured under his protection. If they really suffered a crushing defeat this time, even if the plainclothes sect was one of the 8 major sects, they would not be able to raise their heads for a few years. They want us to withdraw immediately. Otherwise, they will kill the hostages. The words that came out of Enchanting's mouth instantly caused a huge commotion. Some people agreed with her and quickly nodded their heads in agreement. The general idea was that no matter what, they should withdraw first and slowly plan later. There were also more radical people who strongly opposed it, such as Taoist Song Song and Fist Tyrant Panda. Taoist Vasp Kalo anxiously said, "This is ridiculous. The reason why they kidnapped Bureau Chief Chen is to deal with when family sect leader 1. If sect leader 1 does not appear, Bureau Chief Chen's life will not be in danger. They are only scaring us." Fist Tyrant Panda nodded. That's right. If they wanted to kill Chief Chen, they would have done so immediately. Why would they take him away? Deputy Bureau Chief Enchanting, we have to avenge your teacher. We can't leave. Everyone argued for a few more minutes, but it was no different from before. It was still impossible to reach a consensus. Alright, seniors, please stop quarreling. Enchanting's voice finally broke the noisy situation and drew everyone's attention back to her. Dozens of Jianghu seniors turned their heads to look at her. Enchanting took a deep breath. Retreat. Many people secretly heaved a sigh of relief. However, Taoist Song Song and Fist Tyrant Panda refused to accept it and left just like that. Although most of the pressure would fall on the 2 deputy bureau chiefs, and others would secretly say that they did not care about their teacher's blood feud, the 2 major sects would not be able to escape the gossip. Unexpectedly, Wu Miaowan said, "Commander Shui will lead the troops to retreat first, but we sisters will continue to stay here under our own names. We sincerely request the seniors who are willing to help us to stay and help us to avenge our teacher. Right now, we do not know where Sect Leader 1 is and cannot contact her, but perhaps Sect Leader 1 will need our help. However, as long as we can find Sect Leader 1 and discuss with her, with Sect Leader 1's unparalleled skills, she might be able to come up with a solution." Everyone immediately understood. In order to deal with the request of the evil sects and prevent any possibility of Chen Guang being killed, the 2 girls gave the order to retreat on the surface, but because of the blood feud between their sect and the current uncertain situation, someone had to stay behind to support them. However, they had a strong army now, and the other party had set up an ambush. After a portion of the people left, this place would really become a tiger's den. Sect Leader 1 was indeed trustworthy, but that was something that had yet to be seen. What if she did not come? What if she was too conceited and went to the headquarters of Poison Sect or Dark Sect? Or, what if the 2 evil sects and the traitors from Six Swords Sect attacked first? No one would have thought that 2 juniors with bone force would have such courage. Who would leave, who would stay? This was a question that many people had to face. Enchanting and Wu Miaowan pursed their lips and looked at the hesitant Jianghu people. At this moment, no one was in a more difficult situation than them. Thousand Despair Sect and Thousand Flower Valley were not powerful sects to begin with, and it was Enchanting who introduced Long Dingtian to Chen Guang. Dragon Gate Express was on the same side as Thousand Despair Sect and Thousand Flower Valley. The consequences of Long Dingtian's betrayal were much more serious than Six Swords Sect's Zhuge Ling. If one were to say that inviting a wolf into the house was a mistake, the first mistake was Enchanting. Now that their master was dead and there were no more powerful experts in the sect, they had to sit in such a troublesome position. Their own abilities were not enough to convince the others, and the most difficult thing to bear was that Chen Guang was captured. Both of them were equally anxious. On one hand, they had to worry about Chen Guang's safety, and on the other hand, they had to avenge their master. The 2 young girls were in a dilemma. That was why they came up with the idea of retreating on the surface and staying behind on their own. However, they knew that they would be in trouble if they stayed behind. There would not be many people who would be willing to help them. As expected, not long after, many Jianghu people waved their hands and left. Shui Lin watched anxiously behind the 2 of them. This group of heartless and selfish cowards. Otherwise, I'll stay behind with my men. However, Enchanting shook her head and refused. The other party used the retreat as a condition. Although you have a lot of men, they are all ordinary people. They won't be of much use in a fight between experts. It's better to retreat directly to confuse the public. We came in a hurry this time, and you only brought individual weapons. It's possible to sneak an attack on a bone force martial artist, but it's barely enough to deal with an expert at the peak of skin force. It will only increase the number of casualties. Wu Miaowan nodded. The two of us will stay behind. Even if the people from the evil sects take action, we can still deal with them. But, no buts. However, when most of the people left, leaving only Taoist Sang Song, Fist Tyrant Panda, and a dozen sect leader-level experts, Enchanting and Wu Miaowan still could not hide their disappointment. With the strength of these people, it would be far from enough. Even Taoist Vasp Kalo and Panda both called the other elder back. Obviously the two sect heads had decided to give up their lives here. Sending one elder back was also to leave more incense for the sect. The mighty army that was pressing down on the border instantly fell apart because of Chen Guang's capture. This was out of everyone's expectation. On top of the mountain, Ghost Shadow was holding a telescope and looking at the camp from afar. He sneered. This group of righteous sects is like this. They rely on their numbers to have some guts. Actually, when the time comes, they're all cowards. He stood beside Ghost Shadow. He was also holding a telescope. But there are still some who are not afraid of death. Those two girls actually didn't leave. Why don't we? Ghost Shadow shook his head. Forget it. Taoist Sang Song and Fist Tyrant Panda are powerful. Even if sect leader makes a move, he might not be able to take them down easily. Let's wait for Mr. Shadow to ambush and kill that one clan's demoness. By then, these people are just small fries. He continued, I don't know where Mr. Shadow got his fortuitous encounter. This time, his power actually increased greatly. But for some reason, I'm still worried whether he can kill that one clan's demoness. Ghost Shadow also sighed. Only the heavens know what's going on. Mr. Shadow and Wen Clan's demoness are not at a realm that we can estimate. That little girl is also filled with strangeness. Her power is like a monkey that can fly to the sky. We're afraid just looking at her. If it wasn't for the fact that we have absolute confidence, why would we spend so much effort to capture Chen Guang? You said that you're also called Ghost Shadow. Mr. Shadow also has the wording in his name. Why are the two of you so different? Scram. The two of them chatted happily with each other. In the dark sect of the Poison Sect, He and Ghost Shadow had a close relationship. Although they were not in the same sect, their movements were almost inseparable. Both of them were skilled in alacrity and were good at gathering information as well. At this moment, Chen Guang was tied up tightly with hemp rope. He was lying on a metal bed. The room he was in was underground, and there was only a dim light above his head. Two flies were flying around the light and buzzing. He was speechless. All the bones in his body were cracked, and Long Ding Tian actually found such a thick rope to tie him up like a dumpling. About half an hour ago, the right side of his butt had been itching. He wanted to scratch it, but he couldn't move. It was extremely uncomfortable. What was even more infuriating was that from being captured last night until he was locked in this dungeon this morning, he hadn't eaten a single grain of rice or drank a single drop of water. His stomach was rumbling with hunger. This situation of hunger and thirst had weakened the self-regeneration ability of the Earth Sauce Exploder. Until now, the cracks on his bones hadn't healed. What do you guys think this cup is used for? Why does this guy carry it with him all day long? Long Ding Tian sat on the sofa with his legs crossed. He was holding onto Chen Guang's heavenly holy grail and was sizing it up. The golden flower matron lit a cigarette. Maybe he has some weird fetish. It's fine for a man to carry a cup with him, but he actually learned from a little girl and wrapped it with a knitted cover. What a virtue! Chapter 894. Long Ding Tian smacked his lips. That's right. Iron Man. I didn't expect a grown man like Chen Guang to still have a child's heart. Fortunately, he didn't see Chen Guang's Hello Kitty cup cover. Otherwise, he would have to dig his eyes out. But out of curiosity, he decided to remove the cup cover to see what was inside. At this moment, Lu Mingguo was gnashing his teeth in the heavenly Holy Grail. Two lowly mortals. I'm warning you. Don't court death. It was a pity that Long Ding Tian couldn't hear Lu Mingguo's threat and casually tore off the Iron Man cup cover. The heavenly Holy Grail turned into a fiberglass cup and was exposed to the air. In an instant, the huge room was filled with multicolored lights and vibrant colors. Sanskrit chants could be heard, and a strange fragrance rose without any wind. The above was purely boasting. The truth of the matter was that the dear fruit fiercely gritted its teeth and wasted its divine power in vain, wrapping a layer of cover on the surface of the colored glass portrait on the wall of the cup. The fairy goddess that Luli had transformed into was gone. After all, she didn't have any clothes. She had turned into a large green fruit. Pfft! I thought it was something incredible. It turned out to be a fiberglass cup. TSK, this taste is truly terrible. Who would print such a strange green fruit on the cup? Shouldn't it be plum, orchid, bamboo, and chrysanthemum? Otherwise, a landscape painting would also be good. Ugly, truly ugly. What kind of aesthetic sense is this? Isn't it too problematic? The golden flower matron snatched the cup from Long Dingtian's hand and threw it into the rubbish bin. You are always so troublesome. Mr. Ng will be back soon. Let's go to the dungeon and take a look. I hope that fellow, Chen Guang, doesn't bite his tongue and commit suicide. Long Ding Tian stood up in boredom. You really think too highly of him. I understand him. I can confirm that Chen Guang might look like an upright person, but deep in his bones, he has the character of die for me. Even if he knows that we are using him to restrain Wenwen, he won't commit suicide. Is that so? Of course. Lu Minghua, who was in the cup, was trembling with anger. Two reckless ants. How dare you say that there's something wrong with this empress's aesthetics? I will make the two of you into elemental puppets and make you slaves for all eternity. How dare you throw the Holy Grail into the dustbin? The two of you are in trouble. This empress is telling you, the two of you are really in trouble. The last time I was this angry, I had to slaughter millions of divine nations to barely appease my anger. Lu Li's voice suddenly sounded out, all right, Lu Ming, stop arguing. It's not worth it to be angry over the matters of these ants. Sister Lioli, you're finally out of seclusion? Not yet. How much longer? It depends on my mood. Lu Ming, it's also because I don't have a thumb. Otherwise, I'd really want to give Sister Lioli a thumbs up. In the past, I always looked down on Chen Guang, feeling that he wasn't worthy of Sister Lioli's support and help. I don't know why, but now, I suddenly feel a little pity for him. It's really hard for him to be the savior of someone like Sister Lioli. Actually, the two of them were a perfect match, one half a caddy and the other 8 tails. Long Ding Tian and Golden Flower Granny chatted as they walked and went straight to the damp and cold dungeon. Long Ding Tian crossed his arms behind his back and ran in front of Chen Guang with a smile. He looked down at him from above. Director Chen, is this room comfortable? Chen Guang, damn retard. Golden Flower Granny popped her head out from the other side. I'm talking to you. Damn retard multiplied by 2. Do you believe that I'll kill you right now? Golden Flower Granny raised her hand, her palm pulsing with inner strength. She was obviously angry. Chen Guang laughed coldly, not caring. Come on, don't pretend in front of me. It's boring, really boring. If you wanted to kill me, you would have done it long ago. Why wait until now? If you have something to say, say it quickly. In any case, don't even think about getting any information from me. I've never been someone who is afraid of death. Come at me if you have any tricks up your sleeves. Long Ding Tian said, Director Chen, you're thinking too much. We all know that you're famous in Guangding Police Headquarters for not doing anything. I'm afraid that you don't even know everyone in the headquarters. How can I expect to get any information from you? You don't even know as much as I do. Chen Guang realized that in a sense, this guy was right. It was so King awkward. Forget it, don't worry about the details. In any case, I'm not panicking at all. Since they came here to pretend instead of escorting me out and asking me to record it, it means that one hasn't appeared yet. That's good news. So, you adulterous couple came down here just to show off to me? You guys sure have nothing better to do. Chen Guang replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. How can I not lose in terms of aura when facing a villain? I have to be more of a villain than they appear. You can bind my body, but you can't bind my free self. Long Ding Tian saw that he was still so calm and said in surprise, Chen Guang, I realize that I've really underestimated you. Are you really not afraid of death? A real man lives as a hero, and dies as a hero. Life is lighter than a goose feather, and death is heavier than Mount Tai. This is just a stinky body. If it's gone, then it's gone. I, Chen Guang, have stood tall for 20 years. I have a clear conscience. Do I still care about this? 20 years later, I'll be a real man again. You two better hide your graves deep. Otherwise, I'll definitely find your graves and grind your bones into ashes. No, I'll make your ashes into a plaster piggy bank. I'll throw a dime into it every day and listen to the sound. You two traitors, scourging the world and betraying your friends. Your retribution will come sooner or later. It's not that the time hasn't come yet. I have God 3 feet above my head, and my heart is filled with righteousness. In a few days, I'll turn into a sharp blade of justice and let the two of you know the vicissitudes of righteousness. Thinking of the long days of heaven and earth. Confidence, unafraid of death, and confidence in bragging. Chen Guang felt that his current heroic spirit was comparable to those martyrs during the War of Resistance. No, I should be more literary than them. It's a pity that Qin Huang and Han Wu are slightly inferior. I'm ashamed, I'm really ashamed. I'm a person protected by God. I've let everyone see a joke. Ever since he knew that Abbess Xian Yuan and Wu Qingming could be resurrected in the Sea of Time, the pressure in his heart had been greatly relieved. In a sense, this might be a great news. This meant that he, who possessed the heavenly Holy Grail, had actually found an excellent escape route for his friends and family. In the beginning, only Ling Qin was resurrected in the Sea of Time, and this matter was still uncertain. Later on, there was Nicosia, but this might be related to Nicosia's unimaginably powerful machinery heart. But now, he had used the same trick and actually succeeded in protecting Abbess Xian Yuan and Wu Qingming's souls. This was an official announcement that he had developed a new function for the Heavenly Holy Grail. It could collect the souls of those who died in the Heavenly Holy Grail or near him. This was the strongest and most insane function of the Heavenly Holy Grail. This meant that from today onwards, as long as he was careful, those who followed him wouldn't die. 2 lives. Wait a minute. Chen Guang pinched his fingers and calculated. It seemed like there were more than 1 or 2 people who fulfilled this condition. Why did he only notice Ling Qin and Nicosia? Lu Mingguo was only talking about Abbess Xian Yuan and Wu Qingming. What about the others? He wanted to enter the Heavenly Holy Grail, but the Grail was taken away. Although she would definitely think of a way when Azure came out of seclusion, she wasn't used to it now. Forget it, he would ask later. The forced PY transaction had not cooled down yet. Otherwise, if he used it on Long Ding Tian, he would definitely obediently hand over the Grail with both hands. Long Ding Tian understood Chen Guang's character. He knew that he was stubborn and pretended to be the most unyielding. Long Ding Tian curled his lips and smiled without saying anything. But the golden flower woman beside him was shocked. She wondered why this guy was so resolute and even started to recite a poem. If this guy really succeeded in seeking death, with Mr. Ying's style of doing things, she and Long Dingtian would definitely be buried with him. Although it was inconvenient for Chen Guang to move at this time, he saw the golden flower woman's expression. His heart moved and he said again. Don't you want to use my life to threaten Wenwen? It's not a big deal. Anyway, I reckon that in another day or two, I will almost pass away. The golden flower woman pulled out a handkerchief from her hand and wanted to stuff it into Chen Guang's mouth. She thought that this guy couldn't move now. If he wanted to commit suicide, he could only bite his tongue and commit suicide. However, Chen Guang was still smiling. Come on. Shut my mouth. Aren't you afraid that I will bite my tongue and commit suicide? Don't look down on me. How painful would that be? Surely a hunger strike is more reliable, okay? Once you fall asleep, you won't wake up. The golden flower woman glared. You want to die on a hunger strike? Dream on. Dream on? To tell you the truth, from last night until now, I haven't eaten a grain of rice or drunk a drop of water. In another 3 or 4 days, you'll have to wait to collect my corpse. Ha 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 ha. 10 minutes later. I'll stuff you to death. I'll stuff you to death. How about a big, greasy chicken drumstick? I'll make you go on a hunger strike. Show me how you go on a hunger strike. I say, Long Dingtian, why do I feel that he's eating quite happily? You've already eaten 5 servings by yourself. How can you go any further? Chen Guang roared angrily. Both of you, remember this. If you have the guts, then stuff me to death. If you don't stuff me to death, I'll be your grandfather. After stuffing a total of 10 people's worth of food into his mouth, Chen Guang kept cursing. In the end, Long Dingtian and the golden flower woman didn't reject any of the fried chicken, hamburgers, potstickers, and fried dumplings that were sent to his mouth. Damn it, this group of bastards hid in the mountains, yet their food was so authentic. Let's not talk about the fried chicken, hamburgers, and other foreign fast food. This potsticker was fried until it was golden and crispy. It melted in the mouth and was fragrant and delicious. The taste of the fried dumplings was also the work of a master. It looked like a simple dish, but it was made in style. When chewed in the mouth, it reminded one of youth that had passed away under the setting sun. Go, go, go. What time is it now? Hurry up and eat. Who cares about taste? He was actually quite full, but once his stomach started to fill up, the earth sauce exploder's regenerative ability began to take effect. In the time it took to eat such a big meal, the bones in his arms, which were the most severely broken, had recovered by 30%. The food that had just entered his stomach was being rapidly digested. He didn't know when Lioli would be done, but there was definitely no harm in recovering as soon as possible. What are the two of you doing here? At this moment, a low and angry shout came from the entrance of the dungeon. Long Dingtian and Golden Flower Granny shivered and hurriedly threw the food in their hands to the ground. Chen Guang could even see Long Dingtian hiding his greasy hands behind his back and rubbing them on the back of his clothes. If he remembered correctly, when he was captured yesterday, Long Dingtian had forced Abbess Xian Yuan and Wu Qingming back with 2 punches. At that time, the cultivation dissipation powder should have just started to take effect. This meant that Long Dingtian's personal strength should be above 6 sword sex Zhuge. He was on the same level as poison sex demonic Jiu and dark sex evil monarch Yu. He was slightly stronger than Taoist Tsang Song and fist sex master Pan. Later, when he conversed with demonic Jiu and evil monarch Yu, he was neither servile nor overbearing. Both parties were indeed on the same level. On the other hand, Golden Flower Granny was indeed one of the dark sect's 4 great guardians. It seemed that it was because of her good relationship with Long Dingtian that she had a relatively high status in the dark sect. Since this person could make Long Dingtian so nervous, didn't it mean that the person's identity was not simple? Ever since they were captured, Chen Guang had heard the three words Mr. Ing from their mouths more than once. It seemed that he was finally going to meet the real mastermind behind the scenes. I want to see what kind of person this Mr. Ing is and whether he has 3 heads and 6 arms. Thinking about how this guy had played him in circles with his schemes, he was really infuriated. This time, he had really suffered a terrible defeat. If it wasn't for the flash of inspiration at the crucial moment that saved the lives of the 2 seniors, he would really have been consigned to eternal damnation this time. Mr. Ing. Greetings, Mr. Ing. As the black figure walked closer, Long Ding Tian and Golden Flower Granny bowed to greet him. Mr. Ing snorted. Look at you 2 idiots. Just a few words from Chen Guang and you've provoked him to the point of bursting? Hurry up and get lost. Long Ding Tian and Golden Flower Granny quickly shrunk their necks and ran out. Chen Guang tilted his head and sized up this extremely mysterious Mr. Ing. At this moment, he felt very strange. He knew that this person was likely to be the mastermind behind all the conspiracies and should be in existence like a big boss. But what was very strange was that although he couldn't see his face, his subconscious subconsciously wanted to despise him. No, to be precise, it should be contempt. This kind of emotion appeared out of nowhere. But it was deeply rooted, as if it came from the most primitive instinct in the depths of one's heart. It simply couldn't be influenced by ordinary thinking. Chen Guang felt that at this moment, he was probably a little like the king of beasts at the top of the food chain, a fierce tiger, looking down on a trembling little white rabbit. He simply couldn't understand. Although the old man was very confident, although the old man had been waiting for Lioli to pull him ashore, but I shouldn't be so blindly confident to this point, right? No, what exactly is wrong? Logically speaking, I'm clearly lying on the chopping board, and I'm the fish on the chopping board, right? What kind of bullsh** T was I pretending to be when I let go of myself? Chen Guang was sizing up Mr. Ing, and he was also sizing up Chen Guang. At this moment, the person's mind kept recalling the scene of Chen Guang destroying the sky with a flip of his palm and shaking the earth with a flip of his palm. Until today, the impact that he received at that moment was still unforgettable. He looked calm, but he was extremely nervous in his heart. He was also trying hard to test Chen Guang's situation, wanting to know if he was really as weak as he looked. Finally, Mr. Ing was sure of his thoughts. Chapter 895. Chen Guang, I didn't expect you to end up like this. How is it? It doesn't feel good to be a prisoner, right? That person suddenly spoke. His tone was calm, but there was a lingering sense of pride in it. He seemed to be trying his best to suppress and conceal it, but because he was too proud of himself, he couldn't control it. At this moment, Chen Guang couldn't be bothered to retort. You're a boss character, so at the very least, you should be a little more composed. You're beaming with joy, and I've completely lost control of myself, so it's awkward. I don't want to be like this, but I can't control myself. Mr. Ing? Chen Guang asked tentatively. As he asked, he was thinking in his heart. This guy is not Mr. Ing. This guy is not Mr. Ing. How could I be tricked by this kind of person? This is too embarrassing. That's right. It's me. Mr. Ing answered without hesitation. If not for his hands being tied, Chen Guang really wanted to cover his face. Don't be so direct with your answer. Fine, you win this time. What do you want? Do you think you can be like those ancient emperors after killing me and Wenwen? You can rise up and command the masses to rule the world? Wake up, please open your eyes and look at what era it is now. What era is it now? Why are you still resorting to such meaningless schemes? I suggest you hurry up and get married, have a son, and then start training him now. When he turns 18, send him to Renmin University or the School of Politics. When he graduates from college, you can escort him all the way to become a civil servant. In about 30 to 40 years, you might be able to fight for the world. If not, you can also look at the history of companies like Apple, Microsoft, Goldman Sachs, ARM, or Samsung. You can try to catch up with the trend and try to earn some capital. Invest more and do business well. In a few years or 10 years, you will own a company worth trillions. Isn't that better than living on the edge of a knife and plotting against humanity? Oh, I heard that Poison Clan and Dark Clan are quite rich in the past. For the one family, a few billion isn't a big deal. You shouldn't be any worse off, right? If you really want to experience the feeling of being an emperor, I suggest you choose a small country that is slightly more remote. Even if you buy an island, it's not a big deal. Even if you kill me and Wenwen, it's useless. Right now, others still have scruples. If you really provoke them, can you withstand the power of a nuclear bomb? Chen Guang instantly became a chatterbox. It wasn't that he had nothing better to do, but the more he talked, the more he could arouse the other party's interest. The more he spoke, the more information he revealed. It was better than this situation where he knew so much about her and she did not even know his surname or his name. Shut up. Right, Chen. Mr. Ng suddenly roared and interrupted Chen Guang. All right. Since you don't want to hear it, I won't say it. Chen Guang replied casually. Suddenly, he came back to his senses and felt that something was wrong. What did he call me? Right, Chen? Holy shit. What's going on? Seeing Chen Guang's expression changed, Mr. Ng knew that he guessed right. He suddenly opened his cloak. A middle-aged man's face full of cracks and black fog appeared in the light of the basement. He grinned at Chen Guang. Ha ha ha. Do you think you can fool everyone? You can't believe it, right? I am Mr. Ng. Mr. Ng is me. Now, you should know me, right? Chen Guang turned his head and looked at him. After a long while, Chen Guang said, to be honest, I still don't know you. Mr. Ng, who was the middle-aged man, was suddenly stunned. You don't know me? You turned me into a stray dog, you took everything from me, and now you tell me that you don't know me? Chen Guang's mind was filled with hundreds of thousands of questions. Are you famous? Why should I know you? I haven't taken anything from anyone, right? What shocked him the most was that this person actually called him Right Chen. Up until now, he had only officially used the name Right Chen in the Sea of Time and the Second Punishment Realm's Dolua world. Even though his real name was translated into English, this person looked like a Hua Xia person. There was no reason for him to use a foreign language. He must know something. That person's emotions gradually went out of control, and he completely fell into a state of rage. At this moment, the earth-paced exploder ability in Chen Guang's body suddenly shook, and his pupils immediately widened. It appeared. That familiar feeling was exactly the same as the one he felt in the morgue the day before yesterday. It was similar to the earth elemental ability of the Broken World Saint clan. It was actually on this person. At this moment, Chen Guang was shocked, but also felt that it was natural. Mr. Ng saw that Chen Guang's expression changed again, and thought that he finally remembered something. He sneered and said, "It seems that you were pretending to be crazy just now. I was almost fooled by you. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have failed on the verge of success. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have lost a good situation overnight. Have you always wondered why only the Wen family appeared among the three big aristocratic families, and why the Chu family and Xing family were nowhere to be seen? Let me tell you now. The people from the Chu family and Xing family are already dead souls in my hands. I only needed one painting scroll from the Wen family to gather the three great skills, and I would be able to command the martial world. Give me another 10 years, and I would be able to replace those old fools in Yanjing. If it wasn't for you." Chen Guang ignored him, and asked doubtfully, "The Broken World Saint clan? You still haven't remembered who I am. Can't you just say it? Why do you have to make me guess?" "Old man, Ouyang Tianqing." "Oh." Chen Guang dragged the word out, and then stopped abruptly. F***ck, you're that unlucky director of the Special Affairs Bureau. That's right, it's me. Now do you know why I hate you to the core? If it wasn't for you, how would those old fools in Yanjing dare to fall out with me? It was useless to know his identity. Qin Guang was more puzzled about how this fellow obtained the ability of the Broken World Saint Clan and why would he call out his great sorcerer's real name. Alright. It's all my fault, all my fault. What now? Ouyang Tianqing was about to get angry again when he saw Qin Guang's nonchalant expression. However, he suddenly laughed when he saw a trace of mockery in Qin Guang's eyes. I nearly fell for your trick. You're purposely trying to infuriate me so that I will kill you, right? No wonder Long Dingtian said that they were afraid that you would starve to death. I thought those two fools were using their authority to torture you. I didn't expect you to be so strong-willed. Qin Guang secretly rolled his eyes and couldn't be bothered to ridicule him. As the saying went, if the upper beam was not straight, the lower beam would be crooked. This nest of evil sects all had one thing in common. They were too good at divergent thinking. Qin Guang casually said, I didn't expect you to see through me. I'm so angry. Ouyang Tianqing was exasperated. He waved his hand, and a smear of earth element energy appeared out of nowhere. It turned into yellow sand that swept past Qin Guang's eyes and struck the sturdy steel wall of the dungeon. There was a muffled sound, and a fist-sized dent appeared on the 2-centimeter thick steel wall. Qin Guang's eyes widened, and he was ecstatic in his heart. Although he didn't know how this fellow learned the Broken World Saint Clan's ultimate technique, his pure earth element energy was obviously a great supplement for him. The Earth Sauce Exploder's core, which had become extremely weak after coming out of the punishment realm and had been growing extremely slowly, was like a sponge that was thrown into the sea. It was great to eat hot pot in the winter and watermelon in the summer. You. How could you? Qin Guang put on an act and pretended to be stunned. At the same time, he was thinking hard about how he could make this fellow indulge in the process of showing off and give him great supplements. Ouyang Tianqing was finally satisfied when he saw that he had subdued him. Not bad, right Qin? You didn't expect this, did you? Did you really think the Broken World Saint Clan was destroyed? Did you think no one in this world knew your identity as an outsider? No. You're wrong. Ridiculously wrong. I, Ouyang Tianqing, inherited the undying will of the Broken World Saint Clan. I must kill you. Thanks to you, I was able to obtain the Holy Clan's imprint. It was a blessing in disguise. I'm no longer a mortal. I don't just want power. I want to be the ruler of this world. I want eternal life. I will make the Broken World Saint Clan's glory shine on every inch of this universe. I used to think of you as my greatest enemy, but you've disappointed me. Why did your power disappear after coming out of that world? The once arrogant elemental controller, right Qin, has such a day come for you? After I kill Wenwen, I'll kill you. I'll gather the 3 great techniques and the power of the Broken World Saint Clan. In time, no one or weapon in this world will be able to threaten me, Ouyang Tianqing, the last leader of the Broken World Saint Clan. Ouyang Tianqing laughed proudly. His entire body exploded from where he stood and turned into yellow sand that flew away. Qin Guang was very unwilling. He wanted to reach out and grab a handful of sand. Unfortunately, his hands were tied tightly. His bones had not recovered yet, so he could not break free from the strong hemp rope. Qin Guang was very angry. It was possible that when he was slaughtering the Broken World Saint Clan, this fellow was hiding in the punishment realm. He did not know how he was so lucky. After he came out, he did not lose his memory and even obtained the inheritance of the Broken World Saint Clan that he had created. Also, he was not one of the targets of his mission. Otherwise, he would have been crushed to death like an ant. I've really seen a ghost. How did you get so into character? The Broken World Saint Clan was created by the Heavenly Holy Grail, and so was Right Qin. But what the hell was an elemental controller? The old man was the earth-paced exploder, okay? Fine, I feel like the elemental controller is more imposing. In short, this idiot completely believed what happened in the punishment realm. He did not need to lie to himself. His beliefs were stronger than Xian Qin, Wu Miaowan, and Lu Fei, who had also retained their memories. In the past, this technique of transforming into yellow sand and teleporting through the air was like child's play to him. But now, the core of the exploder was still in its embryonic form. This concubine, oh no, this old man, couldn't do it. Forget it. At least he left some earth elemental power when he turned into yellow sand. Let me take another breath to calm down. Less than 20 seconds later, the yellow sand that Ouyang Tianqing had turned into returned. Qin Guang widened his eyes. What was this idiot trying to do? Under his dumbfounded gaze, the yellow sand did not say anything. He leaped to the ground, rolled up his black robe, and ran. Damn it, this idiot forgot to take his clothes. Qin Guang looked at the lonely red briefs on the ground and shouted, I say, Ouyang Tianqing, your underwear is still on the ground. The yellow sand returned for the second time. He rolled up his underwear and ran. Although Qin Guang could not see his expression, he could imagine how embarrassed he was. Forget it. Anyway, it was not bad to take a few more breaths. It felt like his bones were recovering faster. Chapter 896. Although Ouyang Tianqing was so confident that he was about to explode on the spot, it was clear that his abilities were not as terrifying as imagined. Qin Guang could also see that although he could transform his body into yellow sand, the disparity between him and the 3 sacred race elders he had dealt with in the punishment realm couldn't be calculated. After he came out, he only retained a little bit of the strength of the bean-paste explosion. It was already ridiculous that this fellow was stronger than him. There had to be a limit. Otherwise, he would not be so afraid of Wenwen now. It seemed like the mutation that happened to Wenwen had caused her cultivation to improve. If not for his existence, Wenwen would probably be the strongest inner force martial artist in history. Just like what Azure had said, although the inner force of humans could not break through the limits of the plane, it was still a rather exquisite cultivation technique. Ouyang Tianqing was a martial artist and was already very strong. He also obtained the ability of the world-shattering holy tribe. He was not stupid and should understand the logic behind it. Although he did not know what techniques the other 2 unlucky families, the Chu and Xing families had, it should not be worse than the painting scroll. The 3 great techniques and the ability of the world-shattering holy tribe were quite powerful. Qin Guang knew why he purposely came to show off in front of him. Since he really believed that the world-shattering holy tribe really existed, he also thought that he was the great Magister Right Qin of the Dolua world. He had also seen him in his prime as the earth-paced explosion in the Dolua world. He must be afraid that he was pretending to be weak and that he was still the invincible great Magister. Hence, he came to see the situation. Perhaps he had prepared 2 plans. One of them was to confirm whether he had lost all his abilities. If he was sure, he would continue to use him as bait and carry out his plan to kill Wenwen. His other plan was probably to confirm that he was pretending to be weak and that he still had his abilities. Then, he would immediately kowtow and beg him to give him a chance and spare his life. Sigh, really. Once I turn on my old and sophisticated mode, thinking about these problems is too obvious. It's no fun at all. Lying on the metal bed, Qin Guang's stomach was bloated as he sensed the injuries on his bones swiftly recovering. At the same time, he was bored to death. At this point, it was useless for him to be anxious, and he could only wait for Liuli's master plan. Speaking of which, the old men in Yanjin were quite a failure. They picked someone from all over the place to set up the Special Affairs Bureau. Not only did they fail to achieve their goal of restraining inner force martial artists, but they also created a mentally retarded villain with malicious intentions. To be honest, if he hadn't gotten himself involved, he might have been able to do what he had said just now bit by bit. With his thorough preparation and astonishing strength, he might really be able to take advantage of the old master's trust in him to slowly replace the crown prince with a leopard cat, slowly replacing the people who held the scepter's authority with his own people. He should not have made the mistake of attacking the old man's family. In the past, Chen Guang had never understood why. At that time, he was just a commoner, unable to reach the heavens or land. There was nothing worth noticing about him. Later, he understood that it was because of Wenwen. But he couldn't blame her. The two of them met by chance, and they became best friends without any conflict of interest. Neither of them hoped to get anything from the other. It was just because the tortoise liked the mung bean, and they found each other pleasing to the eye. The purer the relationship, the longer it lasted. The two of them were able to get along with each other from the time they met in their first year of university. It was a pity that their simple friendship at that time was still targeted by others. Ouyang Tianxing did not do much to Chen Guang's family, and there were no irreparable casualties. To him, he might have just casually arranged for two people to cause a small case of food poisoning in Chen Guang's hot pot restaurant. But from then on, Chen Guang's life changed. The wealthy Chen family had to take on responsibilities that they shouldn't have because of the Special Affairs Bureau's interference. Perhaps Ouyang Tianxing had already seen through Chen Guang's character when he made his move. He knew that Chen Guang was someone who would suffer for his pride. He also knew that Wenwen would be troubled by Chen Guang's matter, but she would not help him directly because of her pride. After that, Wenwen might have spent most of her energy on helping Chen Guang find out more about the hot pot poisoning incident. Perhaps Ouyang Tianxing had spent a lot of energy to deal with the Chu family and the Xing family of the three aristocratic families, plotting and completing his plans bit by bit. His attack on the Chen family's hot pot restaurant in Lalai County might have been one of his many schemes to divert the attention of the powerful Wen family. To Ouyang Tianxing, such an insignificant scheme was worse than choking on a mouthful of soup. But just like how one day in heaven was 1 year on earth, when a deity knocked over a wine cup, there would be heavy rain and floods for 3 years in the mortal world. Ouyang Tianxing's casual action had completely destroyed the Chen family, and Chen Guang's life. Chen Guang used a whole year to recover his family, and that was with the help of the heavenly Holy Grail. If he was just an ordinary person, without Lu Li's help, if he lived stubbornly and refused to accept help from others, perhaps he would have to wait for many years. Perhaps he would have to wait for many more years. Lin Jingwei really couldn't bear to see him in such dire straits. The Wen family might be like the other two aristocratic families, quietly falling into Ouyang Tianxing's hands. At that time, Chen Guang and his family could be reborn. Perhaps his mother would have passed away because she could not afford to treat her illness by then. A few million was a small matter to the upper class, where money made money. But to ordinary people, it was a goal that could only be achieved after a lifetime of hard work. When Chen Guang thought of that kind of life, he felt a chill down his spine. So how could he not hate? What he hated more was Ouyang Tianxing's cruelty and cold-bloodedness. At that time, he did not want to completely anger Wenwen, so his family was only touched lightly by him. But later, when he felt that it was necessary, he slaughtered 25 families without hesitation. But now, Ouyang Tianxing might be regretting it. Chen Guang knew that he must have become a special existence in Ouyang Tianxing's heart. Perhaps he was even more special than Wenwen. After all, I'm the great sorcerer Right Chen from another world. Sigh, once this human spirit mode is activated, there's really no stopping. Lu Li, hurry up, I'm getting a little impatient. In the camp by Ninghai Lake, after most people left voluntarily or unwillingly, only less than 20 people, including Xian Qin and Wu Miaowan, stayed. The two little girls sat in front of the grave that had just been covered with soil. They looked at each other speechlessly, their eyes red and their throats choked. The two of them did not expect that their teacher, who was almost omnipotent in their hearts, would leave just like that. The two of them lost their parents when they were young and grew up with their teacher. Their relationship was like that of a teacher or a mother. With Abbess Xian Yuan and Wu Qingming's original age and skills, they would not live to 100 years old, but at least have a few decades to live. But suddenly, the sky above Xian Qin and Wu Miaowan's heads collapsed. The two of them had done a good job to be able to endure the pain and resolutely lead the team to stay. Taoist Vasp Kalo sat beside the two of them and said, "Deputy Bureau Chiefs, you don't have to be too sad. For us martial artists, although we don't roam the Jianghu all year round like in the past, freely repaying gratitude and avenging enmity, but in fact, we still have to put our heads on our waists, licking the blood of our swords. It can't be said that our days are precarious, but if we often walk by the river, it's inevitable that our shoes will get wet." Although sect leader Xian and sect leader Wu are women, they are quite heroic and have the demeanor of a woman. In the end, they did not ruin their reputation as Jianghu women. Old Man Panda also sat down. Vasp Kalo and Oxnose are right. I still remember many years ago, when your teacher was about the same age as you are now. Coincidentally, the country had just been established, and the major sects in Jianghu were fighting for power and profit. At that time, although the master of the two bureau chiefs came from a small family, he was upright in his conduct, upheld justice, and was not afraid of the strong. He punished some evildoers who disregarded human life and left a good name in Jianghu. He even killed his way from a bone strength master to a skin strength master. At that time, I also met sect leader Xian and sect leader Wu a few times. In the blink of an eye, dozens of years have passed. Time really flies. Speaking of which, the two of you only left 2 years earlier than me and Oxnose. Taoist Vasp Kalo glared at Panda. Your panda face is Oxnose, your whole family is Oxnose. But don't worry, Deputy Bureau Chiefs. Since Master Pan and I have decided to stay, we have made up our minds. If it really gets to the point of no return, the two of us will find a way to save your lives. Thousand Despair Sect and Thousand Flowers Valley are different. Large sects like us can't afford to suffer anymore. Xian Qin and Wu Miaowan understood, but they did not know what to say. Just as the two seniors had said, with the death of their teacher, as the eldest disciple of the sect, the burden of taking care of the hundreds of people in the huge sect fell on their shoulders. Their teacher had planned and worked hard when he was alive, and there was only one goal, to strengthen the sect. Now that the two of them were in danger, if they died here, they would be considered disloyal, unfilial, and unjust. But when the two of them thought of Chen Guang, who had been kidnapped, they became even more worried. Although he was invincible in the soul world, his magic could only conjure up a sesame-sized ball. Although he was a genius in cultivating inner force, no matter how talented he was, he needed time to grow. He was only at the beginner level of muscle force. If he fell into the hands of those people, wouldn't he be at their mercy? This was really worrying until his hair turned white. At this moment, a cold voice came from behind them. This is the tomb of sect leader Xian of Thousand Despair Sect and sect leader Wu of Thousand Flowers Valley, right? Everyone turned around and saw a lady in white standing proudly in front of them. She was looking at them with a calm gaze. Strangely, although she was standing there without moving, everyone present, including experts like Taoist Vasp Kalo, felt that her figure seemed to be moving left and right, and they could not see her clearly. Apart from that, the autumn wind that was blowing non-stop by the lake seemed to freeze when it reached her. Her clothes were hanging straight down, and it was as if time had stopped around her. She was not dressed like a fairy, and the long pitch-black saber hanging on her back, which was almost as tall as she was, showed that she was not a soft-hearted person. But at this moment, everyone in front of the tombstone could not help but feel that this lady did not belong to this world. She was like a fairy. When one was here, she had become so strong. Chapter 897. Wenwen tried hard to make her expression look softer. However, the anxiety and anger in her heart made this usually simple task extremely difficult. But when she saw the two new graves and the two red-eyed girls in front of the tombstones, the unhappiness in her heart finally dissipated a little, but not much. She had originally planned to scold them harshly. Why did they accompany Chen Guang in his madness? Why did they come here? Why did they allow Chen Guang to be kidnapped under the eyes of so many people? She really wanted to scold these people for being trash and idiots. But now she couldn't scold them. In fact, she was very clear that if she really had to find someone to scold, it would definitely be that guy, Chen Guang. I've already said it before. Since everything started with me and I have the ability to do so, of course I should be the one to end everything with my own hands, and I'll include you as well. I know the anger in your heart, and I also understand your feelings of wanting to do something, but this is not necessary. Now it's great, you overestimated yourself and came here, and then you were captured alive. What should I do? Clearly, with my strength, it was something that could be easily done, but suddenly the difficulty has increased infinitely. Perhaps if I only rely on my own strength to find their headquarters, it will not be done in a day or two, and perhaps I can no longer obtain the antidote before my father dies of the poison, but it is still better than being held hostage by the other party. Can I not care about your life and death? No. But if the other party uses your life to threaten me, forcing me to either cripple my own martial arts or watch you die, what should I do? With things turning out like this, Wen couldn't help but be angry. But in the end, things had come to this, and what was done could not be undone. Wen knew that blaming anyone would not change the truth, not to mention that the two Jianghu seniors had paid the price with their lives. She could not continue to pour salt on the hearts of the two poor girls that were riddled with holes, nor could she blame the Jianghu seniors who sacrificed their lives to protect Chen Guang. Wen suddenly moved. The others did not see how she moved, but she suddenly appeared in front of the grave as if the ground had shrunk to an inch. She quickly bowed and said in a clear voice, Junior Wen represents Chen Guang to bow to the two seniors. The strange thing was, she was obviously talking to the tombstone, but Taoist Sang Song and Xian Qin felt she was talking to them. In Jianghu, it was hard to find a Wenzhong realm martial artist in 100 years. For example, Taoist Vasp Kalo's plain cloth sect, in these few hundred years, there were only 3 pure heart realm strong practitioners who surpassed the skin strength. No one present could understand Wenwen's realm. She seemed to be talking casually, but her voice had an inexplicable sense of insight into people's hearts. Taoist Vasp Kalo opened his mouth wide, unable to close it for a long time. He could not hide his shock. At the individual military drill, he had seen Wen brandishing the butcher's knife against the killers of Poison Sect and Dark Sect. At that time, he was already shocked by her extremely powerful skills. He did not expect that in such a short period of time, she actually improved a few steps. Some people were right, this demoness was indeed a demoness. How did she train? This was completely unreasonable. According to the sect's ancient records, plain cloth sect's almost invincible founder may not be her opponent. But the person with the most complicated feelings right now was still Xian Qin. She used to be secretly jealous of Chen Guang's special care for Wen, even subconsciously compared her in secret and sometimes said some strange things. However, it was rare for her to be so close to this peerless genius who was known as the once-in-100-years genius in Jianghu. She could feel the aura of a powerful expert that she seemed to have returned to her natural state but was actually constantly exuding. Even the inner strength in her dantian was affected by her and began to circulate on its own at a much faster speed than usual. Xian Qin really did not want to admit it, but she could not help but feel a little ashamed of her own inferiority. Just like Chen Guang, the great sorcerer who could destroy the world in his previous life, and the invincible genius who sat on the sacred body of elements in this life, these two were a match made in heaven, so perfect that it made people jealous. No wonder he was always thinking about Wen. If I was a man, I would also be unable to extricate myself from falling in love with such a strange woman, right? Sister Xian Qin, don't worry too much, I will save that guy. She seemed to be talking. Was she talking to me? Sweetheart, sect leader Wen is talking to you. Wu Miaowan, who was beside her, calmed down faster and poked Xian Qin's waist. Xian Qin suddenly came back to her senses. Oh. All right. Wen forced a smile. This guy is a little troublesome, but as long as I don't die, he won't have to worry about his life. I don't know where the people from Six Swords sect got the courage to mix with the evil sects, but it doesn't matter. Demon Sovereign Jiao and Evil Monarch Yu are full of tricks. They think that they have set up a dragon's pool and tiger's den for me, but I will let them understand that in the face of absolute power, all tricks are futile. Daoist Vasp Kalo and Pandeth said in unison, "That's right. Sect leader Wen's martial arts are unparalleled, unprecedented." Wen continued, "Sigh, it's also Qin Guang, that idiot, who only knows how to be hot-headed and cause trouble for me. Otherwise, this matter wouldn't have been so troublesome." "You can't blame it all on Qin Guang, it's all my fault. If I had discovered that Long Ding Tian was up to no good, Chief Qin wouldn't have fallen for it." Unexpectedly, Xian Qin interrupted Wenwen's words. Wenwen turned around and looked at her with a complicated smile on her face. Xian Qin was looking at Wenwen, and Wenwen was also looking at Xian Qin. Wenwen already knew about the existence of Xian Qin and Wu Miaowan. When she had nothing better to do, she was also interested in the things that happened around Qin Guang. She already knew that Qin Guang had 2 dedicated deputy chiefs by his side. Perhaps it was because she loved the house and its crow, but people who didn't understand Qin Guang didn't think that there was anything good about him. But after getting close to him, Wenwen knew that he had an inexplicable and irresistible lethality towards girls. After coming here, she took a few more looks and purposely probed. Xian Qin, this little girl, had indeed subconsciously started to protect Qin Guang. When she called her little sister, she agreed without any qualms. There was indeed a reason behind it. Being stared at by Wenwen, Xian Qin's face turned red. She didn't know what she was embarrassed about. "She called me little sister, maybe she found out something?" Sigh, forget it. In any case, Qin Guang was quite a playboy. On the other side, Wenwen confirmed her suspicions but didn't ask further. Instead, she changed the topic. "Everyone, I'll make it short. If Qin Guang wasn't captured, this matter might be simpler. The people from Poison Sect and Dark Sect invited me to a duel at the top of a mountain about 70 miles west of here. On the way here just now, I saw more than 10 experts at the peak of Skin Force. They are all highly respected and skilled seniors in Jianghu. I'm thinking that since the situation has changed, I might need everyone's help." Taoist Vasp Kalo didn't put on the airs of a senior expert in front of Wenwen. He lowered his head and bowed. "Since this humble Taoist has stayed here to save Chief Qin, since sect leader Wen has invited me, this humble Taoist is duty-bound." Panda also said in a clear voice, "Of course." Wenwen nodded in satisfaction. Qin Guang's subordinates in Guangding General Headquarters were really loyal. However, it could also be that these seniors in Jianghu could see the situation clearly. They knew that technology was advancing day by day, and that martial arts alone could no longer dominate the world. Especially after China's military held individual military exercises, the people in Jianghu who were there were all shocked by the highly advanced individual weapons. This was the trend of history that couldn't be stopped or defied. Wenwen also didn't understand why the 2 evil sects, Six Swords Sect and Long Ding Tian, had the guts to go against the trend of history in such a situation. She vaguely knew that there was an expert behind this, but she didn't know who it was. Wenwen also didn't think that the so-called expert could pose any threat to her. When Xian Qin and Wu Miaowan saw this, although they felt that something was wrong, they still became spirited. Xian Qin said in a clear voice, "I'll go too." Wu Miaowan ran back into the tent and carried her medicine box. "Seniors, although my skills aren't good, my medical skills have been passed down by my master. Perhaps I can help everyone." Unexpectedly, Wenwen suddenly withdrew the smile on her face and said in a slightly cold tone, "The 2 of you have a good idea, but I think we should forget about this matter." Xian Qin didn't understand. "Why?" Wu Miaowan clenched the strap of her medicine box. She also didn't understand. Everything was fine just now. Why did sect leader Wen suddenly change her attitude? All the seniors here are experts in skin strength. The two of you are only in bone strength. How can you be of any help? When it comes to a life and death battle, the evil sects have the advantage in numbers. Do you think we'll have to split people to cover you? According to my original plan, I should go alone. Now that I have no choice, I need the help of all the seniors. As for the two of you, scram as far as you can. Don't be a burden. Unlike the others who maintained respect for Enchanting and Wu Miaowan, the two deputy directors, Wen had the confidence to speak as the world's #1 expert. When Taoist Song Song and the others saw this, they thought that this was a woman's world and it wasn't appropriate to interrupt. About 10 minutes later, everyone was ready to set off. Wen walked at the front with the black saber on her back. Behind her were dozens of experts from various sections. Enchanting and Wu Miaowan pursed their lips and followed behind the crowd unwillingly. After walking for a few miles, Wen finally couldn't take it anymore. She turned around and stepped on the void, landing in front of Enchanting and Wu Miaowan as if she was flying. With a clang, she unsheathed the black saber and slashed it on the ground. Dust flew everywhere. A 10 feet long and a meter deep ravine appeared in front of Enchanting and Wu Miaowan. Both of you, I'll say this first. This ravine is the boundary. If the two of you dare to cross it again, don't blame me for being impolite. Enchanting panicked. How can you do this? Wu Miaowan also bit her lip hard. Too much, too much. Wen sheathed her saber. Without another word, she turned around and left. That, sect leader Wen, there's something I don't know if it's appropriate to say. Taoist Song Song couldn't stand it anymore. He waited until they were far away before he cautiously spoke. Wen, however, kept her sharp edge and cupped her hands at Taoist Song Song. Senior Song Song, I didn't mean to make things difficult for the two of them. Their master is already dead, and they really can't afford to suffer anymore. This time, the other party has hostages. I actually don't have the confidence to win. I'm not afraid to say it out loud. I'm also prepared to die. Wen didn't say it clearly. If her death could really be exchanged for Chen Guang and her father's antidote, she could accept it. Chapter 898. At this moment, Chen Guang, who was taken as a hostage, was still lying on the iron bed in the dungeon. However, the injuries on his bones had already healed, and he was just lying there on purpose. The iron door of the dungeon creaked open, and a delicate-looking young man appeared in the dungeon. He was holding a recording pen in his hand, and there were two people standing behind him. Chen Guang recognized these two people. One of them was the deputy leader of Dark Clan, Ghost Shadow, who had forced Xine Yuan and Wu Qingming to their deaths. The other person seemed to be called Jiu He. Chen Guang's heart skipped a beat when he saw this scene. Wen is here. They want me to say something to make Wen submit. Jiu Li, let him read the script. Ghost Shadow said with his unique hoarse voice, laughing strangely. That delicate-looking young man pulled his collar and came forward excitedly. He first played the recording pen beside Chen Guang's head, then took out a piece of paper and waved it in front of Chen Guang. Read it. Chen Guang looked up and rolled his eyes. This script was worth 800 yuan a month? To my dearest Wen, a day without seeing you feels like 3 years. I'm now a guest in the mountains, and I've been eating and drinking well. I miss you very much, and I wonder if you've gotten thinner or fatter. What the heck is this? The seniors of Poison Clan and Dark Clan are kind people, and I also approve of their entrepreneurial ideas. Entrepreneurial ideas. Damn it. Can you be more professional? Anyway, I really don't want to die, save me. Your change of topic is too stiff. Just a second ago, you were eating and drinking well, and the next second, you don't want to die. Chen Guang turned his head silently. Brother, you were taught Chinese by a PE teacher in primary school, right? What the hell are you writing? Alright, I know what you want me to record. Isn't it just to scream for help, so that Wenwen can't fight back and can only obediently stretch out her neck to be killed? Dream on. Get lost. With that, Chen Guang turned his face away, too lazy to pay any more attention to this idiot. Unexpectedly, this person called Jiu Li was not angry after being scolded. Instead, she put away the recording pen with a smile. Is that okay? Jiu he asked from the side. Jiu Li nodded. It's almost done. I've already recorded Chen Guang's voice. I'll go back and synthesize it. It should be enough to pass off as genuine. Chen Guang's eyes widened as he suddenly realized that he had been tricked. Jiu Li was very proud. Chief Chen, you didn't expect this, right? Ever since I was young, I've liked doing these things. Currently, apart from practicing martial arts, I'm just hanging around on Bilibili. I'm sorry, I'm one of the uploaders of Bilibili's Wang Situ rap. At that moment, Chen Guang was dumbfounded. What the F*** CK? Miscalculation. Who would have thought that there would be a weirdo like Bilibili's uploader among the evil martial artists? When they left triumphantly, Chen Guang immediately became anxious. Although he didn't know how this guy planned to synthesize his voice, seeing how confident he was, he definitely had something up his sleeve. Chen Guang had seen a lot of Wang Situ's ghostly works on Bilibili, so he knew how powerful they were. Lord Lu Li. I still need to save you. Hurry and save me. Shut up. It'll be tomorrow morning at the soonest. Good luck. Unexpectedly, Liu Li actually replied this time, and her voice revealed a trace of exhaustion. Can't it be faster? A man who was never content was like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. He might have been able to remain calm when he knew nothing, but now that he knew the exact time, he naturally wanted more. This was the experience that Chen Guang had come to after dealing with Lu Li for so long. Lord Lu Li's potential was like a chasm, there would always be a gap. Do you want to experience the incomplete beauty of the incomplete version of the world in a cup that can't be resurrected? If you're not careful, you'll also lose your own beauty. That's right, tonight's night is so beautiful that I'll forget to go home. Sorry, it's daytime outside. Oh. Up until now, Chen Guang couldn't be bothered to count how many times he had died in the world in a cup. In the past, he had died n times just to learn a foreign language, and he had exploded countless times just to learn acting, not to mention that he was learning inner force for close quarters combat this time. If he went in without the ability to resurrect himself, wouldn't that be tantamount to throwing his life away? Although he had always been good at causing trouble, courting death didn't mean that he was going to die. Courting death was good, but he couldn't be greedy and had to be measured. On the other side, although Wenwen had forced Enchanting and Wu Miaowan away, the two deputy directors were not easy to deal with. They followed far behind, sneaking around like thieves. This woman is so annoying. She thinks she can climb all over us sisters just because she's so capable. Humph. So infuriating. Wu Miaowan grumbled angrily as she glared at the figure in the distance in front of her. Seeing that Enchanting ignored her, she slammed her palm on the tree next to her. Too much, too much. Enchanting saw that Wu Miaowan was not done and said helplessly, she's just trying to save people. Our skills are indeed far from theirs. I understand that, but I just don't feel comfortable. Can't we just talk nicely? Enchanting didn't speak up for Wenwen anymore. It was obvious that she thought the same way. Wenwen didn't turn around, but she was well aware of the two little tails behind her. Sigh, Senior Vasp Kalo, why don't we trouble you to invite those two to come along with us? Taoist Master Vasp Kalo felt relieved and quickly turned around to ask for help. When everyone gathered again, Wenwen took the initiative to explain, I'm sorry, the two of you. I originally thought that this trip would be extremely dangerous. Apart from me, the other seniors are all at skin force and above. If we were to be defeated and run, they would have a higher chance of escaping. The two of you, on the other hand, would almost certainly die. What I did earlier was to make the two of you back off. However, since the two of you are so determined, I won't force you to be a good person. Instead of letting the two of you follow behind, why don't you come with us? It'll be safer. Although her explanation was very stiff, Enchanting and Wu Miaoan felt much better when they heard it. Sect Leader 1, Chen Guang's matter is both our matter and yours. Moreover, we have a blood feud with our sect. We can't just stand by and watch. Wu Miaoan nodded. That's right. Sect Leader 1, don't worry. The two of us promise not to drag you down. Wen reluctantly agreed. She raised her head to look at the gradually setting sun and estimated the time in her mind. If they rushed like this, they would probably arrive at the appointed location the next morning. If she followed her previous plan, it would be impossible for her to accept the other party's challenge. The other party was extremely crafty and cunning. Only the heavens knew what kind of trap they would lay in advance. Originally, the enemy was in the dark while she was in the dark. She was alone. If she didn't consider the fact that her father's poison was acting up, she should have had the advantage. But now, the other party had laid out an inescapable net. She knew it was a trap, but she had no choice but to fall into it. No one knew what was waiting for her on the other side. Wen couldn't think of a way to save him if the other party used Chen Guang's life as a hostage. She didn't have the slightest bit of confidence. There was an indescribable bitterness in her heart. At this moment, a bullet whizzed over from the horizon. It didn't land on anyone, but hit right under Wenwen's feet. The others jumped in fright and instinctively jumped back. Wenwen looked down and heard Chen Guang's voice coming from the bullet. Help! Help me! They want to kill me. I don't want to die. Help! Chen Guang's mournful scream resounded in the valley. It made people sad and shed tears. Everyone looked at each other. Although we know that Chief Chen is a hostage right now, isn't your scream a little too miserable? Boss, you're so spineless. How can we bear it? No. This can't be what he said. Wenwen and Enchanting said in unison. The two women looked at each other. Wenwen smiled knowingly, while Enchanting turned her face away guiltily. Obviously, the two of them knew Chen Guang's character very well. Although he was usually not a proper person, he was more principled than the average person when it came to this kind of big right and wrong. Even if he really wanted to ask for help and beg for mercy, it wouldn't be in such a tone of fear. Instead, it would be with some playfulness. That guy was a coquettish B***tch who had no moral integrity and vulgarity carved into his bones. He would never really say something like that. This recording must have been faked. But it was useless to realize this. Chen Guang was still a hostage in the hands of the other party. Time flew. Chen Guang was lying on the iron bed. It was not convenient for him to move, and he had nothing to do. To him, this kind of confinement was the greatest torture. Perhaps it was even worse than the soldiers in the army who were punished. At least those people could still move a little. Fortunately, he had dealt with the world in cup more than once or twice. Although he was in a state of mental blockade in the world in cup, he had eaten a lot of pork and gradually learned to snort like a pig. He didn't fall into a state of frenzy like the other people who were locked up. Instead, he simply closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. In a daze, Chen Guang felt that the iron bed under him was swaying, as if someone was moving it. Chen Guang slowly opened his eyes and gradually regained consciousness. The morning breeze blew on his face and the ankles under his trousers. It was chilly. His entire body was being moved up and down by the iron bed. It was like a young lady sitting in a bridal sedan. The difference was that a young lady was sitting in a bridal sedan waiting to be married, but Chen Guang was lying on the iron bed like a stretcher, waiting to be taken as a hostage. Chen Guang looked into the distance. The sun was like a mischievous child poking its head out to look at him. The sky was about to brighten. Yo, Bureau Chief Chen is awake. Did you have a good sleep? Long Ding Tian was walking beside Chen Guang with his arms crossed. He had a face full of ridicule. "Where are we going?" Chen Guang asked despite knowing the answer. "We are going to your and sect master Wen's burial ground." Long Dingtian's tone was full of confidence and pride. Chen Guang didn't bother about him and continued to look at the other people. There were about 70 people. Among them were demon sovereign Jiao and evil monarch Yu, who he had seen before. There were also people like Zhuge Ling from the Six Sword sect. There were also some people that Chen Guang didn't have any impression of. That Mr. Ing had turned out in full force. Over 70 Pi gene experts. Perhaps only the two young men who were carrying the iron bed weren't Pi gene experts. He didn't see that Mr. Ing, and he didn't know where he was. Chapter 899. How is it? Is our Shadow Alliance's strength worthy of Chief Chen's discerning eyes? Long Ding Tian sized up Chen Guang's expression. When he saw that Chen Guang was stunned, he asked with interest. "It's all right. It's good that everyone is here." Chen Guang used a calm tone to reply indifferently, but he was counting the time in his heart. "Lord Luli, it's already morning. Damn it, I'm panicking now." When everyone arrived, the sun had yet to rise halfway. The pitiful old Master Guang was also thrown miserably to the side of the cliff like a piece of wind-blown cured meat. Then, he saw the 70-odd people actually move in a flash. In the blink of an eye, they burrowed into the holes that had been dug at some point in time. Immediately after, dozens of pitch-black gun muzzles silently emerged from the cliff. Chen Guang was astonished. He had seen shameless people, but he had never seen such shameless people. "All of you are reputable experts in the pugilistic world, but you're actually hiding in a hole and shooting. This isn't appropriate, right?" Pharmacy by Lian. As expected of the former chief Ouyang Tianqing, he never took the normal path. Forget it, they should be thankful that they didn't bring out a bigger weapon. If it was just these guns, they shouldn't be able to take Wenwen's life. "Chen Guang, say it. When sect mistress Wen arrives, I will place my hand on your neck and request her to cripple her own martial arts. Furthermore, I will swear to the heavens that as long as she complies with my request, I will not only hand over her father's antidote, but I will also immediately release you." What choice do you think she will make? Just as Chen Guang was cursing in his heart, Ouyang Tianqing's voice appeared beside him again. He was different from the last time they met. This time, he had wrapped himself up tightly. He probably didn't want anyone to see his monster-like face. Of course she won't agree. Don't treat her as a fool. If a despicable person like you doesn't go back on your words, it would be a waste of all the melodramatic dramas that I brought her to watch. You said I'm a despicable person? How much better are you? If it weren't for me, or if I were to disappear without a trace, you'd be the same as me in less than 10 years after you've stabilized your position in the General Bureau of Broken Light Order. Of course not. My life pursuit is much more meaningful than yours. Chen Guang didn't finish his sentence. You're just a pitiful person who lives in my fantasy. Really? Ouyang Tianqing smiled nonchalantly. One could see him shrugging through the cloak. Forget it. I won't provoke you anymore. It's meaningless. You can rest assured that I will give Wenwen a fair chance to fight me. I almost believed it. No, I'm serious. At least before yesterday, I still had some fear in my heart. But haven't you noticed that compared to yesterday, heaven and earth are a little different? Ouyang Tianqing turned around. His deep gaze seemed to pierce through the cloak and peer into Chen Guang's heart. With that reminder, Chen Guang frowned and turned to look at the sky. At the same time, he secretly activated his earth explosion ability. After a while, Chen Guang became more and more surprised. Ouyang Tianqing was right. The power of the Holy Grail, which was everywhere between heaven and earth, became even thicker. When the punishment realm first appeared, Chen Guang sensed that the entire world, and even the entire universe, was enveloped by the power of the Holy Grail. It turned the real world into the world in the Holy Grail. But after he completed the mission, the power of the Holy Grail retreated. He heard Azure say that after the real world and the world in the Holy Grail, which was later known as the real world, completely merged, the two worlds had an inseparable connection. The power of the Holy Grail could no longer be completely separated. It was just so thin that he, the owner of the Holy Grail, could not sense it. After that, the punishment realm appeared for the second time. The real world and the real world merged completely. The entire Earth, and even the entire universe, was completely merged and changed. Lu Fei's father, who was not in Utopia, had his memory tampered with easily. A mirror image of Utopia was created, and the people in Utopia were pulled into the punishment realm in the Holy Grail. After the second punishment realm was completed, although the real world was restored, Qinguang had a vague feeling that something was wrong. Today, he finally understood. The two consecutive punishment realms allowed the real world to merge with the real world twice. The degree of merging was deeper each time, and the connection between the two became closer. Especially after the second time, even though the power of the Holy Grail was still receding like the tide, it was like ants had dug out a hole in a dam. There was still the power of the Holy Grail leaking out from the real world. Now, the concentration of the power of the Holy Grail had finally crossed a certain threshold. It went from undetectable to detectable. Perhaps it was just a seemingly negligible difference between 10 to the minus 10 power and 10 to the minus 9 power, but it was fundamentally different. This meant that the power of the Holy Grail had exceeded the minimum detection limit. It was just like when humans detected something. If the instrument could not detect it, they would treat it as if it did not exist. When the instrument could detect it, the quantitative change would trigger a qualitative change, and it would become something from nothing. In fact, this change was happening every day. It was just that he did not notice it before. Of course, Ouyang Tianxing could not detect the power of the Holy Grail. However, just like when he was near Utopia, the more concentrated the power of the Holy Grail, the more concentrated the elemental power around Utopia. The change that Ouyang Tianxing sensed was definitely elemental power. Although the current concentration could not be compared to before, it was enough for Ouyang Tianxing, who also had a superpower and claimed to be the successor of the World Shatterer Holy Lord, to recover his superpower to a large extent. Right, Chen, now you should believe that I will fight Wen head-on, right? Although I don't know what happened, the Dolua world and our world seem to be connected. The elemental power is constantly surging over. I'm afraid that it won't be long before the elemental power in both worlds becomes the same. When that time comes, the mark that the Holy Clan left in my body will allow me to quickly recover to the strength of a top-tier warrior. As for now, it's time for me to use facts to tell everyone that I, Ouyang Tianxing, am not just a wise man who only knows how to scheme. I have unprecedented strength. The scene of me defeating Wen today will be recorded and I will let everyone in the pugilistic world see it. I will also send a copy to those old fools in Beijing and have them wash their necks and wait. I will let them know that I, Ouyang Tianxing, am back. Of course, it's better to be safe than sorry. With you around, I am sure that I will win. Qinguang, you are my trump card. Ouyang Tianxing's voice was filled with unconcealable confidence. Qinguang didn't want to bother with this guy who was completely immersed in fanaticism. Forget it. Since that's what he planned to do, I don't have to worry about it. I was just worrying about how to pretend to be a corpse and pretend to be dead so that Wen wouldn't be held back by me. It was finally 8 in the morning. The sun was already halfway up. The morning sunlight shone on the ground and cast long shadows on the people who were walking over. Ouyang Tianxing stood on the peak of the mountain with his hands behind his back. He looked down at the people who were coming, as if he was a king waiting for his subjects to worship him. Under his instructions, the other evil sect martial artists who were hiding in the underground caves either tightened their grip on the guns in their hands or threw away the firearms that they looked down on like brooms on the ground. In their hands, they held on to the concealed weapons that they were good at. Why is Mr. Ing different from what we agreed on? The demoness of the Wen family is strong now. He should be hiding in here. We should act according to what we agreed on and give these people a show of strength, right? Demon Sovereign Jiao stepped on the sniper rifle. He didn't like this thing. If it wasn't for Mr. Ying's request, he would have preferred to fight 300 rounds with any random opponent. Evil Monarch Yu played with the weapon in his hands with interest. The things of the modern people do have some tricks. If this bullet hits us at close range, even the two of us will be in trouble. You don't have to worry for Mr. Ing. He has his own methods. Demon Sovereign Jiao swallowed his saliva. To be honest, the current Mr. Ing is really different from the past. Am I hallucinating? He's so King domineering. Although the two of us are considered experts, I really don't dare to face the demoness of the Wen family like he did. Evil Monarch Yu nodded. As he tried to aim the scope at Wen, he snorted. I don't dare either. I don't even know what rock this little girl came from. Traveling monk's son, a monster, a natural monster. At this moment, even the two sect masters had the same thoughts, much less the others. Wen first glared at Evil Monarch Yu, who was aiming at her from the wall, causing this evil sect master to feel a chill in his heart. Then, he turned to look at Ouyang Tian Xing on the mountain peak. This person must be the expert hiding behind the evil sects to guide them. He was rather surprised. He thought that he would continue hiding, or he would directly tie up Chen Guang somewhere and force him to submit. He never expected that he would dare to stand on the mountain peak like a true pugilistic world expert. One family sect master. Do you dare to fight with me? Ouyang Tian Xing shouted. He lived like a thief for most of his life, carefully managing everything he had. Like an oil thief, he slowly nibbled away at the pugilistic world. Then, people watched as he built a tall building, and watched as his building collapsed. Then, he fled like a stray dog. Then, he watched as the Wen family, which he saw as a turtle in a jar, suddenly produced a peerless genius. No one could understand Ouyang Tian Xing's extremely bitter mental journey. Even when he said those words, he couldn't believe it. Would I, Ouyang Tianxing, also have such a bright and upright day? After walking in the darkness for so long, he finally obtained unimaginable power. He could finally stand under the sunlight and feel so good. Wen flew up and unsheathed her blade. If you want to fight, I will fight for you. But, where is the person? Where is the antidote? Ouyang Tian Xing waved his hand, and Chen Guang's metal bed was placed vertically by the two young fellows. He opened his hand again, and a small white jade bottle appeared in his palm. The person is here, and the antidote is also here. But it depends on whether you have the life to take it. Wen landed on the ground, and stood about 10 meters in front of Ouyang Tian Xing. Her inner strength surged out from her body, and black mist surged out from the black blade. I thought you would use Chen Guang's life to threaten me. Ha 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 ha. You're looking down on me. My hands are more than enough to kill you. Chen Guang, who was confident that he would win, rolled his eyes silently. This person's ability aside, the thickness of his skin was as thick as mine. Wen sneered, then turned to look at Chen Guang. She tried her best to control her emotions, and asked, Are you all right? Xin Qin and Wu Miaowan shouted in unison, Chen Guang, how are you? Chen Guang grinned. Hey, I'm in peace now. Everything is fine. At that moment, he shouted from the bottom of his heart. Thief! I'm coming. In the distance, where no one noticed, a seemingly ordinary glass cup suddenly burst out of the ground. Then, as if it had wings, it flew toward Chen Guang. Chen Guang's smile finally bloomed. Oh my God. Lady Lioli, you've finally made it. Lioli's voice was tired and excited. I have good news for you. Please speak. I've succeeded in skipping levels again. What do you mean? The heavenly immortal realm's heavenly clear sky, how is it? What? I don't quite understand. If you want to cultivate inner strength, you have to at least reach the 4th level, the heavenly clear sky in a cup, but you've only reached the 2nd level, one-line sky. This Empress spent a lot of effort, calculated meticulously, and coordinated with the Holy Grail, just like how you build Legos in this world. After carefully planning for a long time, this heavenly clear sky cup's heavenly immortal realm was finally built successfully. When the heavenly clear sky cup was activated, something happened. The fusion of the real world and your real world caused this heavenly clear sky to change, and it became the heavenly immortal cup's heavenly immortal realm at the same level as the transient sea. What you have to cultivate is an inner martial art that the 4th level can withstand. How is it? This Empress is awesome, right? My sister, you're so strong. This is indeed a grand plan. If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid of being seen through, old Master Guang would have been moved to tears. No wonder Lioli couldn't get away for so long. No wonder it was so difficult to carry out her grand plan. When he leveled up from spirit sky to one-line sky, the illusion in his mind was that he had walked to the edge of the universe. It was obvious how difficult it was for this unlucky Holy Grail to level up. Now, in order for him to cultivate inner strength, she had actually forcefully skipped 2 levels, skipped the 3rd level, Cloud Elephant Sky, and reached Heavenly Clear Sky. The difficulty was unimaginable. I've always blamed you wrongly. Actually, you still love me. Chen Guang stared at Ouyang Tianqing's back fiercely. Bastard, just you wait. When I reach Heavenly Clear Sky, I'll come back and show you why the flowers are so red. On the other side, Wenwen and Ouyang Tianqing were already exchanging blows at lightning speed. Chapter 900. Wenwen unsheathed the black cleaver. The inner force of the painting scroll gushed out from the 7 stars transformation in her elixir field, filling her body like a rainbow. A terrifying strength chi surged out from her body. With her as the center, the chi carried the mud and broken leaves on the top of the mountain and turned into a spiral, quickly spreading out in all directions. In an instant, it enveloped a radius of several dozen feet. In this spiral, the black gas that gushed out from the black cleaver mixed with the yellow sand, tearing apart every inch of the air. Taoist Song Song and Panda, who were standing not far behind Wenwen, quickly waved their hands when they saw the situation. Retreat. Wenwen's first move was already so powerful. Everyone was worried that if they continued to stand there, they would be scratched by her indiscriminate force. Touch would mean injury, touch would mean death. Even Taoist Song Song, who had been at the pinnacle of skin force for many years and had a lot of experience, did not dare to touch the tiger's whiskers. The difference in their realm was too great. They could not be mentioned in the same breath. But the group did not only retreat, they also observed the situation as they retreated. Before they came here, they discussed until their heads were dizzy. No one knew how Chen Guang would become a hostage. The worst outcome would be to not see him when they arrived at the scene. Right now, Chen Guang was tied to the metal bed, and there wasn't a better situation for him to be in. As long as they could save him, Sect Leader 1 would no longer be hindered. Then, they could defeat Ouyang Tianqing, who overestimated himself, and all the problems would be solved. When the secretive Mr. Ng finally introduced himself and admitted that he was Ouyang Tianqing, Xian Qin, Wu Miaowan, and Taoist Song Song were not too surprised. First, since things had come to this, there was no difference whether they were surprised or not. Second, the Special Affairs Bureau seemed to be assisting the Huaxia higher-ups in communicating with the martial artists, but the Special Affairs Bureau was actually crooked from the start. Moreover, when the Special Affairs Bureau was destroyed, Ouyang Tianqing fought his way out alone. He did not die. As one of the more upright ones among the 8 great sects, Taoist Vasp Kalo had crossed paths with Ouyang Tianqing a few times in the past, and boasted that he had a good understanding of this person's background. Taoist Vasp Kalo protected Xian Qin and Wu Miaowan as they retreated. He looked at Ouyang Tianqing, who was unmoving like a mountain, and said joyfully, "This Ouyang Tianqing is really overestimating himself. I really don't know where he gets his courage to fight Sect Leader 1 head-on. Panda, the fist tyrant, had the same opinion. This guy has been cautious his whole life, but now he's acting heroically for once. I wonder how many moves he can take. Right now, sect leader Wen's aura is at its peak, but Ouyang Tianxing has yet to accumulate his strength. He's going to die. That's right. I just don't know what else he has up his sleeve. Not to mention the martial artists from the Guangbing headquarters, even the evil martial artists from the Shadow Alliance felt their hearts skip a beat. Although he knew that it was rare for Mistering to be so bold, maybe he wanted to prove something, but which one was about to use her ultimate move? Wasn't he being too careless? Ignorant. Arrogant. Die. Half of Wenwen's attention was on Shenguang, and the other half on Ouyang Tianxing. Seeing that he was looking down on her, she thought to herself and spat. She then exerted strength in her legs, and with the tornado around her, she transformed into a black and yellow dragon and pounced forward. In the blink of an eye, the tornado that Wenwen had transformed into brought along a trail of dust and gravel, and appeared in front of Ouyang Tianxing. With a crisp clang, the tornado suddenly dispersed, leaving behind a long saber that was as black as ink. It left a flowing light in the air as it slashed at Ouyang Tianxing. This saber. It was extremely domineering. It was as fast as lightning. On this morning when the sun had just risen, in the eyes of the spectators, it was as if the light of the rising sun had been stolen. In this world, it was as if there was only this stunning saber left. Everyone who was watching felt as if time had slowed down at this moment. Everyone could clearly see the tornado that had suddenly dispersed, and Wenwen, who was dressed in white, slashed down from the sky with the black saber in her hand. This seemingly simple strike contained some sort of profound martial arts. The killing intent was overflowing to the extreme, but it also gave birth to a feeling of compassion for the state of the universe. Just like what was written in Wen Tianxiang's Song of Righteousness, which Wenwen used to enter the path, there was righteousness in heaven and earth. The buzzing sound grew louder, probably caused by the friction when the saber sliced through the air. Two visible air currents were split into two. In the blink of an eye, the black saber turned into a flowing light, and was about to slash Ouyang Tianxing's head. Bam! Ouyang Tianxing finally moved. He raised his left hand and pinched his thumb and middle finger. There was a flash of green light on his fingertip, and an invisible force was born from his fingertip. It ignored the long saber that was slashing down, and the force went straight for Wenwen's chest. At the same time, he raised his right hand into the shape of a claw. There seemed to be black scales on his fingers and the back of his hand, but they were actually formed by the force. His right claw did not dodge, and it went straight for the black saber. There was a loud clang. Ouyang Tianxing's right claw and the black saber collided, but the saber did not cut off his hand as easily as many people had imagined. Wenwen held the saber with one hand, and her left hand was in the shape of a claw in front of her chest. Smoke came out of her palm, and she slowly flew backwards. This was the first time they had fought, but Wenwen did not gain any advantage. In an instant, everyone was in an uproar. There were people who recognized the martial arts that Ouyang Tianxing was using, and they shouted it out. "Oh my god, that's the Chu family's thunder-flicking finger. And the Xing family's Yama claw of condemnation. How is that possible?" Among the other 10 experts who came with Xian Qin and the others, a white-haired old man, who was especially old, called out the name. Panda exclaimed, "How is that possible? The Xing clan and Chu clan's external techniques require their own unique internal techniques to be used. Could it be?" That elder inhaled a cold breath. That's right, Ouyang Tianxing also knows the Chu clan's 6 god rules and the Xing clan's hell rules. No wonder the 2 aristocratic clans have not appeared in recent years. No wonder the pugilistic world is in such a mess, and no one can find any traces of them. The 2 aristocratic clans are probably dead. Daoist Song Song said, but even though Ouyang Tianxing has the absolute techniques of the 2 clans, his realm doesn't seem to be as good as Sect Master Wen's. Why are the 2 of them evenly matched? The elder sighed. I don't know either. Even Wen was at a loss, much less the people outside. She had used all her strength in her saber, but it was blocked with a single hand. How is it? Do you still think I don't have the qualifications to fight with you? Ouyang Tianqing's voice was filled with indescribable carefreeness. Demon Sovereign Jiu, Evil Monarch Yu, Long Ding Tian, Ghost Shadow, and the others who had just sneaked out were now standing behind Qin Guang and shouting in unison. Especially the people from the Poison Clan and Dark Clan, they were exceptionally excited. For the past few months, the pugilistic world's experts, who were considered heroes, had become street rats and lived in constant fear. Once the experts from their sects were caught by Wen, they would flee in panic, but they couldn't escape and were slaughtered by her like chickens and dogs. On the other hand, more and more people from the pugilistic world joined the orthodox Guangding headquarters, which made it even more difficult for them. If it wasn't for Mr. Ying's resourcefulness and his special methods to control everyone, these people might not have lasted until now and would have betrayed them long ago. Now, they could finally hold their heads up high. Mr. Ying is mighty. Mr. Ying is invincible. On the other side, Ouyang Tianqing's attack was successful. The others were either happy or worried. Only Qin Guang sensed that when the two of them fought, an elemental power that was exactly the same as the world-shattering holy tribe came from Ouyang Tianqing's side. Although this ripple wasn't strong and was far inferior to the world-shattering holy tribe's warriors, in today's battle, coupled with Ouyang Tianqing's original inner strength martial arts, it had a miraculous effect. He actually succeeded in showing off. My cup, come quickly. Qin Guang muttered in his heart. On the other side, Wen and Ouyang Tianqing fought again after a short standoff. The two of them fought higher and higher, and the air was filled with energy. Both of them were actually evenly matched. These two people can actually walk in the air. It's fine if Sect Master Wen can do it. After all, she is a rare genius that only appears once in 1,000 years. But this Ouyang Tianqing, how is it possible? Not only is Mr. Ying the most intelligent person in the world, his martial arts cultivation is also on par with Wen family's demoness. This is our Shadow Alliance's blessing. The evil faction martial artists in Shadow Alliance were in high spirits. The people from the headquarters were even more depressed and worried. In the meantime, the headquarters martial artists led by Taoist Sang Song tried to sneak in Qin Guang's direction several times. However, they were all blocked by the people lying in ambush. Qin Guang looked up at the two people fighting in the air. He was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. He urged Azure in his heart. Hurry up. Lady Azure. Shut up. Although the two people in the air seemed to be evenly matched, as long as he was a hostage, Ouyang Tianqing was in an undefeatable position. Moreover, although this guy was the self-proclaimed world-shattering Holy Lord, since he had mastered the ability to transform into yellow sand, Wen couldn't kill him. In this world, this guy only had one natural enemy, and that was the person who completely suppressed him in terms of cultivation level. That person's cultivation level had regressed, and that person was me, the earth-paced exploder. Qin Guang still remembered the formation called Endless Reincarnation Wheel that the three elders of the world-shattering holy tribe had created. If he was not wrong, since Ouyang Tianqing chose to fight here, he couldn't have just prepared a sniper machine gun to act cute. Especially this mountain top, it was filled with extremely dense elemental power. Using his consciousness, it was very similar to the Endless Reincarnation Wheel. This also meant that it was very likely that Ouyang Tianqing possessed an inexhaustible amount of power in this region. Just as he was thinking about this, the two people who were fighting in the air suddenly stopped moving. In the next instant, the two of them fell from a height of 10 meters. Ouyang Tianqing was lying on the ground, but his body blocked Wen, so Qin Guang couldn't see Wen's movements from below. However, the long blade pierced through Ouyang Tianqing's back. He was lying on the ground, but his limbs were spread out, and he didn't move at all. The previously excited Shadow Alliance evil faction warriors were all speechless, instead it was Taoist Vasp Kalo and the rest who were ecstatic. While these people were in a daze, Xian Qin and Wu Miaowan, who had been paying attention to Chen Guang, looked at each other and made up their minds. Here's our chance. Xian Qin's thin figure suddenly disappeared into the crowd. She turned into a flash of light and went straight for Chen Guang's metal bed. Only Chen Guang suddenly had a bad feeling. He shouted, "Wen. Be careful." The others didn't know, but Chen Guang knew. Ouyang Tianqing was playing a trick. There was no blood coming out from the place where the blade pierced through his back. Haha. It's too late. Ouyang Tianqing, who was pretending to be a corpse in the sky, suddenly laughed. In the next instant, Chen Guang's pupils contracted. This guy's elemental power was completely activated. Ouyang Tianqing finally used his ultimate move. The others only saw Ouyang Tianqing's right fist suddenly grow bigger and then fly above him like a cannonball. Creaking sounds came from the place where the blade pierced through. It was obvious that Wen wanted to retract her blade, but he had turned his body into rock and stopped her. When Wen realized something was wrong, Ouyang Tianqing's rock fist had already landed on her shoulder that was holding the blade. Although she had internal energy to protect her body, she was still sent flying by the terrifying force. The black blade fell out of her hand. The two landed separately. Ouyang Tianqing stood in front of Chen Guang with his hands behind his back. How was it? Did you like the taste of this punch? In the distance, Wen clutched her shoulder and stared at them. She didn't understand what was going on. She had almost reached the limit of a martial artist, and she had even surpassed the strongest master of the Wen family recorded in the family's ancient books. How could she lose? But Ouyang Tianqing's situation was too strange. For the first time, she realized that she might not be his opponent. Clown, get lost. Xian Qin had already rushed in front of Chen Guang. Ouyang Tianqing had his hands behind his back and didn't even look in her direction. He raised his left hand without turning his head. Qi burst out from his fingertips. It was the Chu family's finger-snapping thunder. The moment the Qi appeared, it shot towards Xian Qin's head like a bullet. While it didn't look powerful, everyone knew that with the power that Ouyang Tianqing displayed, Xian Qin, who was merely at the peak of bone strength, would die instantly. Bam! The finger-snapping thunder didn't hit Xian Qin's body. It was blocked by a hand that suddenly reached out. Although this hand was also blown into pieces, and only half of the wrist bone was left, it was still blocked in the end. Xian Qin was stunned. Wu Miaowan and Taoist Sang Song were stunned as well. Wen, who was trying her best to regulate her inner qi and control her injuries, was stunned as well. Long Ding Tian was the first to shout, "Didn't I shatter all your bones? How can you move?" The person who blocked the finger-snapping thunder was Chen Guang, who broke free from the hemp rope and forcefully used his right palm to block in front of Xian Qin's head. Ouyang Tianqing turned around and wasn't overly surprised. In his previous life, he was the elemental controller, Right Chen, who single-handedly destroyed the world-shattering Saint clan. Ouyang Tianqing turned around and wasn't overly surprised. In his previous life, he was the elemental controller, Right Chen, who single-handedly destroyed the world-shattering Saint clan. But it was useless. His broken wrist had started to bleed. The finger-snapping thunder contained the six gods' law inner force that was wreaking havoc in his body. His aura was rapidly weakening. He didn't have much longer to live, and this was worse than committing suicide by cutting his wrist. Chen Guang's blood sprayed out and dripped onto Xian Qin's face. After a brief moment of absent-mindedness, she suddenly wailed, "Chen Guang! Chief Chen!" Taoist Sang Song saw that the situation wasn't good and immediately formed a formation to protect Wu Miaowan. Wu Miaowan had a medical kit with her, and she could still be saved in time. Wen, who was already severely injured, couldn't be bothered about her injuries as she activated her inner qi again and charged forward. "Don't even think about succeeding. Demon Sovereign Jiao and the others didn't wait for Ouyang Tianqing's order and took the initiative to face Taoist Sang Song and the others. The other martial artists that were hiding in the mountain started to open fire, and bullets rained down on everyone. Ouyang Tianqing laughed maniacally. Forget it. I originally wanted to let you live a little longer. But since you are seeking death, I won't stop you. As for the others, all of you shall die. Ouyang Tianqing raised his hand again, and a thunderous sound rose from his abdomen. The Chu clan's 6 god laws and Xing clan's Hell Palace rules were activated at the same time. 2 waves of inner qi flew out from his palms like dragons, one towards Wenwen, and the other towards Taoist Sang Song and the others. When the rumbling stopped, Wenwen flew back a few steps from the impact, and Taoist Sang Song and the others were in an even more tragic state. They all vomited blood as they flew back, and along the way, they were hit by the sneak attacks. The fist tyrant, Panda, had a palm-sized wound on his chest. Wu Miaowan, who was protecting him from behind, coughed up blood from the impact of the blow. The others were all sprawled all over the ground. Even the most experienced and knowledgeable old man spat out blood and fell to the ground dead. On the other hand, Xian Qin was already standing beside Chen Guang. She pulled down her sleeves and tried to bind Chen Guang's wrist to stop the bleeding, and tears flowed uncontrollably from her eyes. But Chen Guang did not move. He raised his left hand expressionlessly and caught the heavenly holy grail that was flying towards him from behind. With a flick of his left index finger, he opened the lid of the grail. With the holy grail in hand, the world is mine. Ha ha ha. What's a little bit of blood? At a time like this, let me drink some water to calm my nerves. He raised the grail with his left hand, and drank as if he was toasting the moon. But what entered his mouth was not water, but mud. Damn it. Lord Luli, what the hell are you doing? Chen Guang felt extremely awkward. His image was completely ruined. You still have the cheek to say that? Someone snatched the grail and threw it into the trash. When I rushed out of the trash with the grail, I thought that the immortal heavens world of cups should at least have some space, and not an empty grail. That's why I was considerate enough to fill it with mud for you. Who asked you to not forget to act cool at a time like this? Lu Li's ridicule was tit for tat. Oh. Alright, thank you for your consideration. On the other side, Ouyang Tianqing laughed out loud. Right, Chen, are you crazy? An earth great magician can recover his strength by eating soil? Chen Guang smiled. In Ouyang Tianqing's eyes, his expression was rather strange. That's right. When people are down and out, they should eat more soil. That way, they can really make a comeback. Wait a second, I'll teach you a lesson. Come to me. Ascend to the heavens. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.